Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of USD 453, April 15th, 2024. I have the roll call. Mrs. Reed?
Here.
Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Overby?
Here.
Mrs. Wells?
Here.
Mrs. Price?
Here.
Mrs. Murphy?
Here.
I'm Mr. Carney. I'm here, obviously. Okay, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody want to turn their phone off, please? Okay, item 2 is one of our favorite things. That's the recognitions.
We're not ready yet.
Yeah, we aren't?
Nope.
Where are we?
District mission statement.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
sorry.
And this is just a reminder on behalf of Mr. Sifford to speak clearly and directly into the microphone so we can pick up the feed. To the mission statement, the mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom every day.
Thank you. No Patreon and butter. Okay, that takes us to,
I'd like to adopt the agenda.
We'd like to make some changes to the agenda before we adopt it. Number 18 to be removed. And do we want to do the consent agenda changes now or wait till consent agenda?
We would wait till consent agenda to do that.
And to be clear, the removal by 18 was recommended by administration.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of 18.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Looks like 7-0. Now we're at recognition, right?
Yes, sir.
Going back to what I said earlier, recognitions, very important. One of the best things we do as a board besides graduation. So tonight, I think we have 3 people for recognition. The first one will be Raina Cloutier. Is that how you say it? That's how I was told to say it.
All right, we have a certificate of recognition from the Unified School District of Leavenworth to Raina Cloutier. Support Leavenworth Military Youth of the Year for exemplary service, involvement, student leadership, and serving as a positive role model and team mentor. Awarded this day, 15th of April, 2024. Congratulations.
Karen, do you have the bowling one? Huh? What's his name? I don't have a name.
It's Shadowing class. It's the whole team.
Oh, the whole team.
Yep.
Okay,
No, they're not here.
and they're not here?
I don't see coach.
Is the team here? The bowling team here?
Is anybody here from the bowling team tonight?
Next one.
Does anybody want to go bowling? Okay, no bowling team. Yeah. Were they notified?
So either way, we did want to recognize the LHS Pioneer Bowling Team for qualifying to state. That would have been a winter athletic program. And obviously, as you can imagine, it is tough to recognize them. And so this was the first opportunity for us to do so. So congratulations to Coach Langfoss, as well as our Pioneer Bowlers.
Yeah, this was. I know there's some wrestlers out here, right? Oh, okay. You look like, okay. So next up is the wrestling team, coached by Bill Ernesti.
Coach, come on up, sir.
I didn't ruin your name, did I?
You can go ahead.
Close? Okay.
First of all, it's an honor to even be here to get to talk about these guys that are coming up and these young ladies. When I call out your name, please step up. Gavin Seeker was a freshman who was a state qualifier. Jacob Gardner, senior, two-time state qualifier. Sam Vasquez, freshman, state qualifier. Cam Turner, freshman, state qualifier. Nathan Atwell, freshman, state qualifier. Blaze Overby, sophomore, state qualifier. Arnez Woods, junior, state qualifier. Some of our girls are going to be missing tonight because they are amazing and they do so many other things like the play and track and everything else going on. Avery Johnson, I cannot go without mentioning it though. Three-time state placer, two-time state champion, just an amazing human award if they have that out there. Jackie Goodman, if you would please come up. What a heart in this young lady. She's a three-time state placer and has overcome a lot of obstacles with injury and did incredible. Renee Marion, she's a freshman running track, and Sarai couldn't be here tonight because she was sick. When you look at this group, I have nothing but pride in my eyes. I feel blessed to even get to be around them. Their work ethic, everything that they do everything that they were asked. They compete against a lot of people that may have wrestled since they were very little. And some of these have started to catch those people just by wrestling a year and a half, 2 years. And I couldn't be more proud. But overall, my heart of hearts, education, they do say student athlete, correct? So if you take the entire state team's GPA for first semester, because we're going to do better second semester, it's just not over yet, it was a 3.56 GPA standard. Yep.
All right, we've got a certificate of recognition for the Leavenworth, from the Leavenworth Unified School District. We hereby present Leavenworth High School Pioneer Wrestling for outstanding sportsmanship and athletic achievement in regional and state competition and positive representation of Leavenworth High School and USD 453 throughout the winter sports season, awarded on this 15th day of April, 2024. Congratulations.
Hey, real quick before you take your picture, how many are coming back next year? So, and state qualifiers next year as well.
That's always good to know. That's always good to know.
Well, okay, go ahead. I need to read all these.
And the consent agenda.
Yeah. I'll let them get out of here first. Next up is the consent agenda. 3.1 is the check register. 3.2 is the minutes. 3.3 is the treasurer's report. 3.4, consideration of the JROTC field trip. 3.5 is consideration of membership with KSB and KSB legal funds. And where's 6 at? Where is it?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda with the removal of 3.5 and 3.6.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Karen?
Karen. Let's see the hands again. I didn't see them. 7-0. Wonderful. Okay. So we move those to 4-1 and 4-2.
Yes.
Where in the hell's 3-6? Wow.
So if I'm tracking correctly, 3.5 would become 4.1.
Yep.
3.6 would become 4.2. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. 3-6 is way back.
Everybody
Right.
good with that cadence?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. So,
Okay, I requested that 3.5 and 3.6 be pulled, not to take up a lot of time, but I wanted to do a separate vote for those two items. 3.5, I'm going to kind of read this so I don't mess this up. I wanted to have an independent vote instead of leaving that on the consent agenda. The reason being, KASB does some great work and they have a lot of expertise. However, they have a tremendous political influence and a big footprint through their advocacy. They advocate for public education more as a system or an institution, which is not always the same as advocating for students and families. That's how I see it. There are other organizations, such as the Kansas School Board Resource Center, that provide guidance and training, but with maybe a little different focus. And I think it would be helpful to tap their resources as well and consider some other points of view. It would have been my preference that we purchase the add-ons, the season pass and the legal assistance fund, and forgo the general membership. But as one would expect, it's not possible to purchase the add-ons without the main package. So I just felt it was important enough to vote on this as a standalone issue. And so that's why I requested to have a separate vote for that. That's all.
okay. Do we have to motion?
Any further discussion?
Yeah, to your question, we are seeking a motion for approval.
Right.
That's correct, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the membership with KASB and the KASB Legal Fund. Do I need to say the amount? I'm looking for it all together. $12,038.86 for the membership, $1,750 for the season pass, and the $2,750 for the legal fund.
Second.
A motion and a second to go with the KSP legal fund and the other items in the package. All in favor? Four, opposed? 4-3, I guess. I just want to add a comment about it. I mean, I know longevity doesn't always mean anything, but we've been with KSB for a long time, and I don't know really if there's a serious issue about what they do or don't do. But if we were going to go to somebody, I think we ought to, as a board, research it, and maybe there is a better organization. But at this point, I mean, that's all we've known for, I don't know, long as I've been on board anyway. But I think it should be looked at and see if there's some value to it. Okay, what's the next one? 3-6?
Consideration of teaching strategies.
Karen
I
also
pulled that
requested
one
this,
also.
right? Yep.
Yeah.
This is now 4.2, just for clarification
Okay.
purposes,
Right.
but this is
So item-
curricular resources specifically for Earl Lawson.
Yes. I did ask a lot of questions about this, spent a lot of time on it, clarified some things this afternoon. The the reason I pulled this off is I would like to suggest that we drop the Ready Rosie and use the Title I funds either for something that we're getting more value out of, or if we can roll it over and add it to the next time, because that one does not seem to be, there's not a lot of evidence that anyone's even looking at it, is my impression.
So for a little context, and I have this board with me as well, Ready Rosie, if you're not familiar, is a video-based resource that gets pushed out to family members or community members that have signed up. Gives kind of how-to practice tips for different skills for their early childhood kids to practice at home. So it isn't one of the core curricular elements. So as Ms. Overby asked questions going forward when we were prioritizing those other two pieces, the gold and the cloud were definitely our top priorities. So Ready Rosie is one that we recommend to move forward with because it is a resource for the community and family, and we can certainly analyze usage. I was talking to Ms. Bourne a little bit about that earlier, moving forward for future renewals, but it isn't as high a priority as those other two elements.
And we've been using Ready Rosie since Lawson opened, correct?
Correct. It came in as part of the Link grant originally.
And we didn't use it prior to Lawson
Correct.
opening as the pre-K Center.
Yes, correct.
What kind of a video would it be?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Bourne if she wants to give an example of that. She can speak better than I can on that.
Yeah, so there are reels of videos that the teacher can actually go in and send specifically skill-based videos. We are not using it that way right now. We are using it as a community-based resource. So a way for us to engage those families before they ever come to us as a 5-year-old at Lawson, because that's kind of where we're missing the mark sometimes, is that birth to 4-year-old. So that's how we're using it.
So
But the videos could be, for example, one of them is activities to do with your child at the grocery store focused on counting. And so it gives the parent ideas and strategies of, now I'm at the grocery store with my kiddo, what quick activities can I do that just focus on counting while we're here doing our grocery shopping?
So are these families that aren't currently part of Parents as Teachers?
They could be, it just depends. So we gave our community code out to the private schools, the daycares. So this was a way for us to share some of our resources with the community and not just our kindergartners or our pre-Ks at Lawson.
So I'd like to reiterate, this came from the Link grant, and I believe that was $1 million grant.
It's 3.2 million shared
3.2.
between us and Atchison.
Okay, $3.2 million grant. And I was here when we got all that, and I know we wanted to do from birth on to help kids learn how to read and help prepare them before they go to school. My question is now, considering what we've been watching the last few years since we got this grant and we used Ready Rosie, did we get any stats on how many people did access that? Do we have a way to know how many hits we're on? Or were we doing better by spending this kind of money getting books into these younger readers' hands?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's an either or proposition. I would say, like Stephanie has alluded to too, it's a passive resource that's being pushed out. We were talking a little earlier, and Ms. Overby and I talked about this afternoon. If we decide to renew the subscription, it's a 1-year renewal, and we can certainly build in, whether it's parent-teacher conferences or surveys that Ms. Bourne sends on anyway to families, some questions about Ready Rosie and if there's a value seen in that, because that's not something we've looked at a deep level in terms of that usage. It's been more, this is a resource to benefit the community as a whole.
Yeah, but that's still what I want to find out. How much has it really benefited the community? Because if we're spending this money already, grant or not, we should know what the benefit is. Is it 10%? Is it 50%? And I'm not hearing those kind of statistics.
I would say at this point in time, and Stephanie can correct me if I'm wrong, I'd say their usage is relatively low. It's being pushed out, but the usage is relatively low.
You have to understand the way that we're using it is community-based, right? So I would know how many community kids there are to be able to say, 60% of all of more community-based, birth through 3 years old are using this, right? So it's based on who we know and who we can get into the program. So I can tell you who we've signed up,
Right.
how much they've actually used it. As far as community, I can't tell you
if it's even
If
being
it's-
farmed, the information's being farmed out from the other
Yeah.
sources that you've given it to.
Yep.
It's kind of like offering a free lunch. You really don't know how many of them are actually taking it or not.
Do you put similar things in your newsletter? So on this, with this company, Mr. Kearney, are we able to vote on these individual items? Because I'm disapproving of the company as a whole, and I just wanted to make sure for voting purposes that we,
We're voting for the whole.
okay.
And so if it's the board's desire, obviously we're recommending the full package, but if it's the board's desire, I think we are comfortable with removing Ready Rosie and reevaluating that. If my math is correct, that would give a total of 39,400 for the package.
To be clear, those are 3 separate vendors, so 3 separate if that makes sense. So you would have the ability to do that.
Gold assessment
one-
portfolios could
one
be
vendor.
one.
Oh, I'm sorry,
One
one
vendor,
one
three
vendor,
products.
3 products. My apologies. Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve this packet minus the Ready Rosie Community Library resources and classroom resources, bringing the cost down to $39,400.
I apologize, Mr. Murphy. I just wanted to state, just on behalf of my vote, the reason for my vote against the vendor. Real briefly, if I could. So there's a Newsweek article, as Mr. Carney has asked me to give more information about my votes at times, so just to be transparent for him as well. It's called Everywhere Our Schools Are Hurting Kids. And then it's basically just an article about DEI. And so this company's DEI statement would be why I'm voting no. Thank you.
Who's the company?
The company would be the
Strategies.
vendor, which is the Teaching Strategies.
Vendor is Teaching Strategies. My apologies. 3 products, 1 vendor.
So I don't know what she wants.
I don't need anything, Mr. Kearney.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go.
And we do have a motion on the floor.
She got a
Yep.
motion. Right. Anybody second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion to pull Red Rosie off and leave all others intact. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you would be approving if you voted for gold assessment as well as creative curriculum cloud and not approving Ready Rosie. If I understood Ms. Murphy's is that correct? Yeah.
So all in favor of keeping everything but Red Rosie? 6-1. Thank you. Building report.
Your building report, looks like they're making their way up here shortly,
Mhm.
is Mrs. Clampett and Mrs. O'Neill. So tonight you're going to get to hear about the west side of the district and Henry Leavenworth Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us present to you tonight, especially to the board, constituents. We are very grateful for your support, and I'd like to introduce Mrs. O'Neill.
Hello, my name is Alyssa O'Neill, and I'm the assistant principal at Henry Leavenworth.
And I'm Jeanette Clampett, principal here at Henry Leavenworth. And then we have Teddy, our therapy dog, who has also joined us to kind of go through the day-to-day doings and the things that we've been undertaking this year so far to just bring you up to date and share some of the fascinating and fantastic things that students and teachers are doing. First of all, with our neighboring community, I'd like to say thank you. The traffic flow was very much an issue for many years, and because of some planning by the district, with the help of the facilities department and the PR department here at board office, I think we have found a very nice flow around the building, and it is not impeding traffic around that part of the neighborhood. And we are especially thankful that I think we have found a great place to be. And then next, I'd like to thank our staff and our all the way around from our facilities to our paras to our teachers. We have been able to do many things this year that has brought to light the work that we're trying to do, and sharing that with them through our family nights and from showcases and things like that. It's all dedicated to their hard work and bringing it forward so that we can all experience very positive things together. If you want to click, sorry. Just to tell you a little bit more about us as Henry Leavenworth, here are our numbers. At any given time, we have 397 people or 94 people under the roof. First grade, we are first through fourth. We do have a kindergartner in our life skills program, but there you can see our numbers. Our largest grade level is 94 in third grade, and they are loving it. So, and then staff members, we do have an influx of staff members throughout the district. They travel in and out, so that's hence the 68 plus. All right, if you want to click on, the theme for this year was Better Together, and this is brought us to engage in our creativity, or empower our creativity in our students, engage their empathy, and then reestablish and connect with our community. So those are the ways that we think we can bring all us together and be better for it through our relationships. So our social emotional learning is a huge part. We believe if the kids don't get off and started on the right foot, it can be a difficult day for them. We start each day with a morning assembly. They go back to the classrooms for some morning tubs and a soft start, and then character strong morning meetings, which we do bridge to the morning assembly, reviewing expectations. The Caught in the Acts, those are Teddy inspired. He gives out dog tags, and we make a formal recognition during the morning assembly for their good behavior, and he catches them showing perseverance, or he catches them encouraged. And the goal is by the end of the year that every single student has at least had some sort of recognition throughout the year based on our strong character traits. Something new this year for behavior we started was to go about and recognize our students, our new students, our student leaders, students for good behavior that sometimes don't get the recognition that they deserve, as well as some social skill group. And they are all hosted by our counselor and our social worker. And they work diligently hard to make sure that they are collecting kids from the classroom and that they're getting to spend that time with them. And it has been very helpful with our new students to help bridge the knowing doing of what it's like to be at Henry and be a student here. And it was very much appreciated by that opportunity from our counselor and our social worker to get to know them first. So, and then that leads us to some of the other things that we're doing with behavior that also has inspired us.
So just one of the ways that we wanted to support teachers and students in the social emotional learning, we just noticed a need to surround students and teachers with support staff that are willing and able to help problem solve and work with students to provide additional layers of support. And so we kind of use that as our jumping off point to establish what we call data chats. And the social emotional learning was sort of the driving force behind those data chats, and just bringing around the table our school intervention team. And that consists of myself, Ms. Clampett, our counselor, our title reading teacher, and our title math teacher, and just having them around the table to discuss with those teachers once a month. We have that 30-minute time that is dedicated to them and looking at where additional people within the building can support them. And so it started out as focusing on that emotional learning, and it has since evolved into impacting their instruction as well.
And we'll talk more about that in a second. So we're going to move on to the presentation, and Teddy's looking for some snacks. You can pet him. That's what he's here for.
He loves all the attention.
So we do have some pillars at Henry, just like the state has pillars that we think are foundational. One of those is attendance, and we obviously SEL and behavior was the first one, attendance being the next one, the school culture and climate. which involves both staff and students, and then family engagement. So those are our big four, but we strive for 5 every day when it comes to attendance. This is also a weekly review within our morning assembly, and then the kids work through the process of we start with class recognition, and then we move on to our quarterly reward parties. We've incorporated our student leaders. They stand out front with the signs that say we're glad to here every day, and we're trying to sell and promote. They strive for 5, and it means be here, be on time, be a leader, be successful, and be ready. And not specifically in that order, I'm sorry, you got him. But we do try to do high fives at least once a week with the kids on Thursday, just to promote our strive for 5. So then moving on to our family to engage empathy. This is where we have been working with our instructional facilitator and our consultant, Susan Maynard, to really get into engaging our heart, head, and hands. And that means reaching that zone of optimal confusion where we can find that creative spark and that genius, and so that we can solve problems for others. It isn't about solving our problems or the problems that's right in front of us. It's about solving the problems of others. And this is where we draw in our civic learning, which is a huge component of what we're doing, but our service learning and our design thinking. So this here is kind of showcasing that. We have first grade plan up there for you, where they are using that, of course, going through their PLC, finding the standards, pulling in the science and social studies to it, so that they can engage. They ideate, they make plans, and they create a prototype. They test their prototype, and then they come back to it if they need to. So there is a problem-solving, design thinking process that they use, and with each one of these service learning projects that they do as a class. And then, as we looked, we talked about the data. Our literacy components, the structured literacy, is a huge part of what we teach each day. And so the students are engaging in a variety of different things. They work within the community. If you'll notice, there's a picture there of our buddies. There's a student sitting there reading with their buddies. And you'll notice there's lots of small teachers teaching small group. We are working very hard with our data at our tier 2, like Mrs. O'Neill spoke to, and we're going to review how it all connects together now to engage that academic side for our students. We're looking at our data. We have found that our small group instruction is a great way for us to tackle our tier 2 students that are still acquiring the skills that they may not have mastered yet. And we're using that in both reading and math. And we're bringing encouraging our PLCs, which is our grade level teacher groups, to engage in conversations around those essential standards and develop their common formative assessments. And they're using this to bring back to the data checks. And can you explain how that's going?
So I would say it's been a process. So we've been doing the data checks for about 3 months. And so we're finally at a point now where we're talking instruction, and we're talking that tier 2 and those small groups, and just using the information that we would collect on a day-to-day basis, but trying to be intentional with it. And so as far as small groups are concerned, we've been able to target students for specific phonics skills or specific math skills where we're seeing that there are deficits in, to where we want to surround them with as much support as possible, whether that is carried out with the classroom teacher, whether it's our intervention aides or our title teachers. And so we're just looking at all of the different ways that we can support, and just seeing the progress that we've made from the beginning of these data chats to our most recent ones, and the teachers knowing and owning and being able to have those conversations around their kids with where they started in these particular skills versus where they've evolved has just been an amazing experience to see.
So we're super proud of the work and the time and money that's been dedicated for the PLC and the PLC time. This is time that I'd like to showcase that T&L has been instrumental in supporting us in setting up some play-based activities to help bridge our first grade from kindergarten to first grade with a taco stand, and it was a huge hit with the kids. There are Facebook posts. They're writing out orders, collecting money, and doing transactions as if they were running their own taco shop. I was in to check in on it, and they were able to tell me that they couldn't serve me yet because they had to clean. And they had to have the taco shop just a certain way, and they had their cleaning checklist, and all of these things was student driven and derived. And it was thanks to Julie and Michaela coming in and helping Miss Seidel, and it was something she wanted to take on, and we're super proud of that too. And that is one of the ways we'd like to approach that transition from kindergarten to first grade. Then going on and speaking some more about the building and being better together, our school climate and culture, it would not be what it is if it wasn't for our community. Our community connections are huge. We'd like to thank our First United Methodist Church who brought in lunch and served it for the teachers on PD. It was a huge and significant morale booster for them. Those days can be long, and they're taking in a lot of information, so we really appreciate that. And secondly, I'd like to really thank Katie Edwards and her work around the educational foundation. The teachers get not only resources for their classroom, but they've been instrumental in helping us impact the morale around the building and doing things for the teachers and providing gifts and just that seizing those opportunities to build value. They've done a great job of building them up and being their cheerleaders. So moving on then to, I'm sorry, I got off a little bit. Moving on now to the community connection. I'd like to also highlight the fact that we have a PTO. They have wonderful ideas. They get their hands dirty. There was their picture on the last slide of them making dino family engagement dinosaur balls that they had to chip and crack away so that the kids could find a prize during our latest book fair. It is so nice to see how many staff members give up their evenings to do family engagement, and that's what we have pictures of here of our Title I family night, as well as those opportunities to have teachers present skills and concepts that they can then replicate when students get home with the parents. And we've had some really good turnout this year. We have had 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring, and we've had a great turnout for those. So family engagement is huge. I don't know if anyone recognizes this, but we are a certified car seat inspection center. This will be our 3rd year of having that. Mrs. Haddock, who is phenomenal in her social work and making connections, has done a great job. We have distributed 30 car seats. We've done 4 car seat inspections. And then just yesterday, we were still distributing more in partnership with Cornerstones of Care. You don't think that a student in foster care, you think they come with everything, they don't. So they showed up for a placement saying, I have a 5-year-old, I don't have a safe way to transport, can we have a car seat? That's what we're here for, and that's what we can offer and do. So car seats, anything in that realm, safety passenger seat, we can definitely set the community up. If they qualify for free and reduced lunches, they would qualify for a free car seat for their children. And for all children, it doesn't matter if it's just one child or 3. So we're real proud of that, and I hope that the community can kind of continue to seek us out, and that we can get the people the resources and our people the community connection to where they can find it. And then last but not least, we are excited for our end of year activities. Do you want to?
Sure. Yes. So we have a few field trips that are going to be coming up, and one of those is to Biztown with our 3rd graders, and that is one of the opportunities that was available due to the Education Foundation. So 3rd grade is very excited about. Students and teachers are excited about that upcoming field trip, and you'll notice it goes along with their Economy Day that they are having on May 8th. In addition to that, 4th grade, they are planning their wax museum, and they are excited about learning all of those different characters and how they were important and contributed to society. So those are a couple things that we have for 3rd and 4th grade. We are also super excited. We have the Warren Jazz Band who is coming on May 13th to do a performance for our students. And we are really looking forward to that. I saw a countdown today in a classroom to Field Day, which is happening on May 17th, which I know is always an exciting event that the kids look forward to. And then we have the Graduates Parade for the Fist Bump Friday, which is the date is to be determined at the moment.
So that's all we have for you. And please let us know if you have any questions and we'll answer them. Yes.
I have, well, it sounds like some good things are going on over at Henry Leavenworth. I have a few questions. Soft start, I've heard that before, but what does that look like?
So we have there are building materials, games, cards. There are opportunities for the kids to come in and not have an academic or a technological task, and they are to engage in conversation. It's a great opportunity for the teacher to talk to the student. It's also a great opportunity for the students to talk to one another, and kind of test and try on some social skills. That means, like, if it means getting along and taking turns, it can start right there, and it can be to the more complex that he's always winning and I never win at this game. So how do we deal with that? So, and it can be something like that, where it can be simply building with another person or building independently, depending on the choice of the child.
So if I understand, we start with the morning assembly,
Mhm.
and then we're going to soft start.
They go back to the classroom.
How much time does that take before our kids are ready to
Right.
learn?
So school, the bell rings at 8:20, assembly's over at 8:30, they're transitioned back to their classroom, and they're ready to start into the soft start, so the teacher can do attendance, take temperature on the class to see and make sure everybody's able to get here, because we still have students sometimes at the elementary level coming in a little bit later than that, but we try to catch everyone with the morning meeting about 8:45.
Okay, did you say, okay, a PLC, is that your lessons in,
So
your
that's
academic lessons in the classroom? Or
So PLCs are grade level PLCs. They're professional learning communities. And we use that structure from DeFore to implement the identification of our essential standards. So yes, it does impact instruction. So they identify their essential standards. They then develop a assessment of that standard or assessments of that standard, because they can be multifaceted. And once they do that, then they deliver the instructions, they assess their students, they come back together, they meet, they determine if the kids need to have a reteach or an enrichment, or they need more practice at just what they're doing, but they're getting it. So that's when we differentiate and use our model for tiered support or MTSS.
did you say that you were collecting data for 3 months?
Collecting data for 3 months.
Collecting on the PLCs, on the academic part for?
No, what I had referenced earlier was the data chats have been happening for 3 months now. So the data collection has been there, just being able to provide that additional layer of support and guidance with lots of people around the table is what we've been able to implement for the last 3 months.
Okay, sorry. Your civic learning, what does that involve?
So in the first quarter, we asked that teachers engage with their students in a service learning project that is buddy classrooms. So we're getting to know our community. So it's kind of under the roof. What connections, what things can we do for our buddies? How would they benefit from our friendship, and what do they need? And they go about, it can be they sometimes will make markers. They've made bracelets for them during state testing. They made stress balls and bookmarks so that they were encouraging each other. So they look out for their buddy classrooms all year long, figuring out what they need to help their life be easier or better and promote the social, emotional well-being. And then when we ask is that they branch out to the community. So for now, for instance, our second grade class is working on a You Matter project and bringing in kindness, and they're going to deliver friendship bracelets to the community members and put a thank you card and a You Matter card in their doors in the neighborhood. So they'll do a walking field trip to do that one day now that the weather is so much nicer. And then, so that's their project for the community. And then we're striving and reaching for those global opportunities to show that we understand what's going on in the world around us. And so we are working towards a global type projects. And that is something that we all need to come together on and determine what we need to do. But it could be studying and researching about the ocean and the trash that's in the ocean and the big floating garbage that we need to recycle, reuse, renew, that type of thing, and improve the world around us. So that would be the goal from that global project.
Okay. And last thing, and then I'll be done. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. I'm getting a picture. I need to get over there, but I'm getting a picture of a very, very, very therapeutic environment,
Yes.
which is, I guess, my concern is, how's the academics? Because that's what we're here for, but we're SEL, behavior attendance, we're talking about that, engaging empathy, all that's great. Solving problems for other people. I'm not sure. I don't know. My concern is how much time is this eating? Because I'm not hearing
Right.
what are we doing in school if we're doing this all day?
Yes. Well, social and civic engagement, and some of these, like the science and things that go around the cleaning up the ocean, can bring in science standards. So that's why we need and are working with our instructional facilitator on site. She and our consultant, Susan Maynard, has been working with our PLC grade level teams to tie our literacy standards to our science and social studies. So we're doing integration across curricular type activities, things that you might be familiar with as bringing the science into math or finding the math that's in science and then working through problems that way as well. And so it should not be another layer of an additional something to do. It's intended to be incorporated through their literacy block and through through their literacy centers, and give students, and hopefully to gain those individual plans of study that they're working on at the high school. We're trying to set the groundwork so that kids can then have an opportunity going forward to be in charge and have choice in what they're learning about. And the design thinking comes out of MIT and some of our higher education as a problem-solving scaffolding, because our world today, working through the empathy and figuring out what people need to come up with solutions, is a huge proponent.
Okay, but I don't know if it's our kids' job to figure out what everybody needs. They need to get a good education. I guess I don't know. I'll just leave it there.
It teaches them the soft skills. What we're going for is it should be teaching them the soft skills around communication and presentation, because when they're after they've ideated and they've got their prototype, it goes back to testing and then getting feedback, and that's hard too. So it just teaches them the soft skills that they're going to need to be college and career ready.
Part of your slide that I was hoping to see was on behaviors. Can you talk to us about how behaviors are going at Henry?
Yes, we, like all of the other schools, have our influx of students that come to school not quite ready to face the day, but we do what we can in-house to get them through the door and know that the routine and the structures are there and we have the resources that they can reach for. So if a student comes in that is not ready to have breakfast with the rest of the cafeteria, they can go to a quiet place, get adjusted, and meet their sensory needs. And maybe it is I just need 5 minutes of quiet because it's been chaotic at home. They can do that, and we know who they are by this point in the year. So it's going very smoothly, and we take each day as it comes and are prepared based on what we know about the kids already and offer them the best opportunity to get themselves situated and on with their day.
Was there a pellet gun incident recently at that school?
There was, it was not, brought out up until the very end of the day. It had, and so that was the first discovery of it. It was swiftly removed and brought up to the office where parents and, were engaged, and, administration here at board office is contacted.
Well, my last question is, what percentage of your staff would you say are happy at Henry, everything's going well, versus what percentage are maybe disgruntled, looking for some kind of change?
Well, it's an influx, I believe, across the district on the retention and hiring, and I feel like it's something we all contend with. It kind of fluctuates from day to day based on what kind of day we've had and the demands of the day.
Sure.
So it's kind of, that's a hard question to ask on any given day. I know that we have a large number of people, and here we think it's great, and we show up every day for the kids, and we want them to have the best schooling that they possibly can.
Well, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but the last time I looked at our elementary data, Henry had the best academic scores. So assuming that's still the same, I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll continue to monitor our progress, and hopefully using these strategies will increase that.
If I may.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Knowing that there are behavior issues and other occurrences that could really throw a wrench in the processes, what do you feel is your most successful thing on a day-to-day basis that consistently seems to work for you? Because I mean, if you've got scatter here, scatter here, I mean, there's usually one really good thing that always tends to shine that kind of brings everybody back together and straightens that day out. What's the most consistent program that you're using?
One consistent program that we're using,
Philosophy, whatever it is, something that
okay.
that's consistently, no matter what's going on, you can pull that little trick right out of the hat box and bam,
Well,
it seems to iron out.
I have to say it's the positive attitude of the staff. They always seem to pull through even when times are tough. I had, for instance, a building aide. He noticed that we were going to be shorthanded to help go on recovery room calls. He showed up on Friday even after he'd taken a personal day. That's the kind of dedication that I think all of the staff carries with them. And that's what I would say that is that grit and that tenacity to get it done and get it done well. And that would be something that makes Henry what we are.
That's excellent. The next real quick one, I promise. I know in talking with you over the last few years, and when one of my granddaughters was attending there, I have many grandkids. Working on the garden.
Yes.
How is the garden working?
So Mrs. Wilson is in first grade, and that's the last study that they are doing this year. Our theme is working through the service learning and getting that garden growing.
And are you hoping still to be able to have gardens for each of the other classes so that they may do that?
Yes, we still have the resources available, and that is the plan.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
And we are working with Uncover KC, and with them as a resource, they have worked with other schools to make community gardens a thing. So
very good. Thank you.
Yes.
What can we as a board do to help support you as the Henry building?
Just please keep supporting us. Come see what we're doing. We have some fantastic things and learning about our service learning projects, and just support. That's all we ask. Okay.
One more quick one. Are you still using the program that we pay to find you the service projects? Or are you
That's
exploring
Uncover
through?
KC.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Are you doing any on your own too, besides
There
what
is
they
some-
offer?
Yes,
Okay,
we
thank
are
you.
doing a few, but mostly they are helping us pinpoint those projects.
Which
through-
some of those could actually be in the Kansas City area.
Could, yes.
Thank you.
Like through Children's Mercy, we have reached out to them and things like that, but they are very in our corridor specific.
Thanks so much for all the good work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Real quick, I dressed for 80 some degrees today. Is there any way we can not have that air so cold in here? Thank you.
It was hotter earlier.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
That must be
I need a
fun.
heater underneath here.
All those bodies left.
Do we want to vote on it? I think it feels good.
Yes, let's vote, Carney.
Okay. Oh. Are you item
Item
6?
6.
I am.
Go right ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a great evening. My name is Rebecca Varvel, Assistant Director of Special Education, and tonight I'm talking to you guys a little bit about the Behavior Task Force work that we've done and coming to you with a proposal for a methodology pre-K through 12 that we would like to implement to help address some of the behavioral concerns that we have across our district. So we're primarily focusing here on the student engagement and support services, but this work does fall within all areas of our strategic plan. Our goals for the task force was to review and adopt a unified evidence-based classroom management methodology that would begin this next school year and become part of who we are as Leavenworth. This is not just a one-year implementation and we're done. This is who we are as Leavenworth moving forward. We're working on developing a tiered response system to common behaviors so that there's consistency amongst different grade levels, different buildings for our students. And then identifying supports needed for staff and students to be supported within the basis of behavior. Our task force was made up of a total of 31 individuals across the district. Every building had members that were assigned within that task force. It was made up of 6 administrators, 18 teachers, 4 board-certified behavior analysts, 2 psychologists, and then 1 coach. Our total years of experience within this program was 453, USD 453. Did not plan that until I did the math. I was like, wow, that just worked out and said all the things. Of those years of experience, 283 years of that experience has been done here in Leavenworth.
I thought that was impressive when I read that.
I was like, how'd that happen? So this is just a quick, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but this is a quick roadmap of where we've been and where we're heading. So this work was a direct response of Dr. Adams' listening sessions across the district that he did, as well as our work within the strategic plan, where we heard staff and families and students say behavior is a concern. In fact, behavior is one of the top 2 concerns that came out of those listening sessions. And so we can't continue to ignore the problem. We have to come up with a solution for it. So in November, we approved the strategic plan. And then in January is when we formed the task force with those 31 members, and then we began our work. So in February is when we began looking at methodologies, reviewing various programs. Then into March, continuing to look at those methodologies, using a rubric to rate those based on various things such as looking at research, evidence behind them, evaluation and assessments that are used for those, etc. We're coming to you today with a recommendation. And then pending board approval, if you approve, then we'll be moving into June and July, starting to get staff trained. Full implementation starting in August, and then we will have ongoing data collection, ongoing fidelity checks, ongoing implementation. There would be a follow-up training in November, on that November 1 date for our staff. So once again, this is not a one-time sit and get and we're done and we're over it. Like, it is a continual at the forefront of this work. And then we'll continue then once again with that implementation, coaching, reviewing data, and then we'll be coming to you no later than June of next year to go over the ultimate results of year 1 of implementation. Notice I say year 1. Once again, this is not something we implement and then just throw it out the window. We are going to continue to do this work. So why are we looking at this? As I mentioned before, behavior has been one of the top 2 concerns across the district. In addition to that, it increases staff recruitment and retention. Research shows that one of the main reasons why teachers leave education within the first 5 years is behavior, student behavior specifically. It's also in response to our indicator 4 noncompliance data. So we received notification this year that we had too many suspensions during the 21-22 and 22-23 school year. In fact, our letter from the 21-22 school year had a bold at the top that we
We're the worst offending district in the entire state for a number of students suspended with disabilities over 10 days. So that's important to note. We want to make sure that we're addressing the concerns, behavior concerns and classroom management concerns that are impacting student outcomes. So every time we look at graduation rates, state assessment scores, et cetera, we cannot forget that we have students that are suspended, that are missing instruction, that then ultimately impacts those scores. Research also shows that about 10% of students that are suspended will ultimately drop out of school. So with our graduation rates being what they are, we cannot forget that that could be a piece of the puzzle. Additionally, we want to make sure we have creating a safe environment for all of our students and staff. And then one of the biggest pieces here is making sure that we have that consistency, continuity, and a streamlined system across pre-K through 12. So that students, when they move from pre-K kindergarten to first grade, doesn't matter what building you go to, you're going to hear the same language, you're going to hear the same expectations, et cetera. When you move to the intermediate, same thing, middle school, and then on into high school. Right now, it's a hodgepodge of different things. Every building does something a little different. So if I'm a first grader at David Brewer and the next year I go to Anthony, I'm not going to have the same language more often than not, and that causes non-continuity. Then you can imagine at the intermediate, when we all come to the intermediate building, you can imagine how that might happen where, I mean, our staff are telling us now that they can tell the differences in, I think the student was at this building, and I think the student was at that building, depending on how they respond to discipline, consequences, when they respond to instruction, et cetera. And that's a problem. So this is just a historical overview starting in 2018, just so you can kind of see the number of incidents of suspension we've had. So this is ISS and OSS. It's important to note that incidents does not equal days. This is strictly an incident. So an incident may be 1 day, an incident could be 10 days, an incident could be an expulsion. An incident is just an incident of behavior. So you can see in 2018, we were pretty high. The year of 1920, we decreased. We attribute that to when we closed down in March. There was no more suspensions, obviously. When we came back during the year of COVID, there also was still not a lot of discipline happening, just because we had a lot of students that were virtual in and out. So there was a little more flexibility there. And then now you can see that we've been on the rise since. It's important to note that 23-24 is this school year. And of course, it's slightly lower, but we are not out of the woods yet. We still have a month and a half of school left. I've also heard some information where individuals are saying that there's this misnomer that, you know, it's just 5 or 10 kids that's causing these numbers to be so astronomical. So what I did was I went through and looked at the data for this school year and looked at the number of students that this is coming from. And so this is data that's representative of each student that has received an incident. So it doesn't matter whether a student got 1 all year or whether students had 20 incidents, right? So I'm just kind of purely a student. So you can see at the K4 level, 5% of our students have received an OSS and 0.3 have received ISS. Part of that is because our elementaries don't do a lot of ISS. When we get to the 5-6 building, you can see that 16% of students have received an OSS, 8.6% have received an ISS, 7-8 goes to 11% for OSS, 5.6% for ISS. And then when we get to 9-12, 9% have received an OSS and 15 have received an ISS. It's also important to note that the Kansas average in 2013 was 4%. The reason why there's not a more recent number for that is because we don't submit that data for all students every year. We submit our suspension data for students with disabilities. We do not submit it for all students. So that's the most recent number that they were able to give us was 4%. The national average in 2018 was 5%. So you can see our overall 453 OSS percentage was 8.6% this year, and our ISS rate is 7.8. So as you can see, we've got some growth to do. I took it a step further and looked at the number of days that our students are being impacted by this and looked at last year and then pulled this year's as well. Our top 3 biggest behaviors we're dealing with are class misconduct, closed campus rule, which when you look at that, that's just general misconduct in general. It could be in the hallway. It could just be this kind of catch-all. It maybe is an incident where there's 4, 5, 6 behaviors all in one. So it's just a catch-all type of phrasing. And then the last one is fighting. So those are our top 3 reasons for behavior or for suspensions. It is not all-inclusive, right? There's other things as well. So when you look at this data, the number of days for this school year, I'm gonna focus on this school year. The number of days of OSS that we have issued is 2,235. In-school suspensions is 917. And learning support services is unique because that represents an out-of-school suspension day. But our students with disabilities, once they reach their 11th day of suspension, then can go to Nettie Hartnett to receive services for a reduced. So they can come a half a day essentially. So we have 362 days of learning support services. So even when students are in ISS, you can assume there's probably not a lot of learning going on beyond just making up work and those types of things, right? They're not getting direct instruction on the current content. So what I did was I looked at their 7 hours in a day of instructional time. So the total number of missed hours so far this school year is over 25,000 hours of missed instructional time. And then when you look at best practice and we assume that each student would have 80 interactions, that minimum per day between teachers and student and student, our students have missed almost 300,000 interactions that can make a positive impact in their lives for school. Any questions up to this point on any of that data? Okay, so we'll go into the methodology selection process. So as I said, the task force was formed and we reviewed 4 different programs or methodologies: Safe and Civil Schools, BIST, Classroom Management Organization Program, and Conscious Discipline. BIST was removed from the list because KSDE published in March their list of approved programs for at-risk, and BIST had been removed from that list, so I was not going to come forward with a program that has been removed due to that, so that would not have been responsible on our part, so we removed that from the options. So each rubric was completed for each program by each task force member, and it was based around program alignment, implementation support, program components, effectiveness and outcomes, and then last was assessment and evaluation. So on a Likert scale of out of 5, Safe and Civil Schools earned a score of 4.1, followed by Conscious Discipline, which was 2.8, and then COMP, which is that Classroom Organization Management Program, of 1.2. I broke it down a little bit further just so we can look at the consistencies amongst the different components, and you can see consistencies amongst those scorings, with Safe and Civil Schools consistently scoring higher than the rest, followed by Conscious Discipline, and then lastly was COMP. Safe and Civil Schools remains on the KSDE approved at-risk program list. In order to be on that list, you have to have a minimum of 5 years of peer-reviewed research. So I can't just be a company that says, look at all this research I have that I've done. I can make any research look pro for me, right? So this has to be peer-reviewed research. The School Psychology Review also keeps it on their list, as well as the National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices. And then there's various independent research studies that's been done over the past 20 plus years, done by universities, doctoral students, et cetera, that you can find. Safe and Civil Schools was established in 1985. So once again, not a program that's just new to education. It's been around for quite some time. They've had more districts sign on with their programming within the last 12 months than they have in the past 5 years, because districts across the nation are struggling and they don't know what to do with behavior. Since 2007, they've delivered over 13,500 days of PD nationwide, 560 of those days being in Kansas. One district that I was able to find in Kansas that has implemented this for a long period of time is Hayes out in western Kansas, similar size and population to ours. And they've implemented for the past 7 years and continue to do so. They've been able to maintain stability and seen positive results. When you look at the Safe and Civil model, think of it as a triangle. We have all looked at the triangle before. And so what we're really focusing on here is that classroom section, kind of that upper beginning piece of that triangle there. So champs and discipline in secondary classroom is where our focus is for this proposal. They offer a variety of other things as well. In fact, they have a programming for absenteeism, and we do utilize that within our district as well. And we've seen huge results within our buildings, especially Anthony Elementary. They've used it and they've really taken that to heart, and they've seen huge growth. So what we're looking at is within the programs, 2 different programs within this. So CHANCE would be utilized for elementary and intermediate through grade 6. And then grades 7 through 12 would be discipline in the secondary classroom. They both feature similar focuses. You'll hear the word CHAMPS in both programs. You're going to hear the methodology, the title of STOIC in both programs. Really, when you get to that secondary version, it's really focusing more on the secondary language, on more age-appropriate consequences for a secondary student, Things like behavior monitoring sheets for students, like we're no longer giving kids smiley faces at the secondary level. Those look different. So there's this initial training for staff. So that would be at the end of day 1 of the training. You'll see the goals below. So we're hoping that teachers will be able to establish a vision for their classroom, organize their classrooms for student success, prepare for that first month of school. How do I make sure the students are going to be successful and know what I need as a teacher and how they can be successful and in charge of their learning? Specify classroom behavioral expectations. We want to motivate even those uncooperative students, the kids that come in day 1 and you're like, okay, like this kid's not cooperating with me. We want to make sure they have a toolbox ready to go so that the teacher's already not like, what do I do with Johnny? The teacher's ready to go day 1. Monitor and revise classroom behavior plans as they need, and then correct specific misbehaviors. So if teachers are readily able and trained to be able to correct those misbehaviors, they're not trying to figure out how do I correct Johnny's behavior when Johnny pulls his cell phone out and I need him to put it up. Or when Johnny says, no, I'm not doing that, and puts his head on the desk. Many of our teachers just don't know what to do. They don't have that toolbox to be able to say, okay, I'm going to try strategy 1, then strategy 2, and then strategy 3. It's just, I don't know what to do with Johnny. And then Johnny gets to do that behavior and it's reinforced. And then we start down the trend of Johnny's always putting his head down. And then we have to break that behavior in a different way. So I also want to be very clear on many of you probably walked through our buildings and many of you probably seen posters that say CHAMPS on it. That is a sub piece of it that CHAMPS model, what we're talking about is a comprehensive CHAMPS model. We're not talking about putting posters on the wall and we're paying all this money for posters on the wall, right? Think about it just like a speed limit sign. If we have a speed limit sign up but nobody's enforcing the speed limit, people don't follow the speed limit. And if we don't go through driver's ed, we don't know how to regulate our speeds and drive appropriately, right? So we're getting pulled over. So think of it in kind of terms of that. Just by putting CHAMPS posters on the wall does not address the bigger concern. That's a piece of the bigger puzzle. Really where the big piece of this comes from is what we call the STOIC model. So what we're looking for here is structure and organization in all settings. It prompts that responsible behavior and we maintain those high expectations for students. We teach your expectations regarding how to behave responsibly within the structure you've created. We're observing as staff whether students are meeting expectations by physically circulating, visually scanning, and then collecting meaningful data. So once again, we're not standing behind our desk. We're not just teaching like this. We are moving around. We're using proximity. We're collecting data. Johnny hasn't engaged in the past 2 days. What am I doing? What can I do to engage Johnny? We're going to interact positively with students by building those relationships and provide frequent age-appropriate positive feedback. And then lastly, that C within STOIC is correcting irresponsible behaviors fluently. So that's how do I do that calmly? How am I consistent with that? I'm immediate, I'm brief, respectful, and hopefully as much as possible that corrections happens in a private manner. So I'm not calling Johnny out from way across the room. I'm not waiting until the end of the class to correct his behavior. I'm doing it frequently, calmly, as quickly as I can so that those behaviors don't continue to occur and become malignant amongst the class. We have 5 behavior benchmarks that we're watching for implementation. So these are based on research and best practices. Its data is collected utilizing this tool throughout walkthroughs to determine impact and fidelity. Additionally, teachers are reflecting on this as well. So once to twice a week, teachers are collecting the 10-minute little sampling of how am I doing on these things as well and reflecting on that behavior and that data. And then that walkthrough data is how we determine, is this are we making progress, those types of things. So your 5 big things that we're looking for is ratio of interactions. So that's going to be your positive to corrective. So how many times am I praising or providing positive interactions versus how many times am I correcting a misbehavior? We want at minimum 3 positive interactions to every 1 corrective statement. Opportunities to respond. So in 10 minutes, best practices, there's at least 40 interactions that are happening, whether that's 2 + 2, what's that word? Like we should have frequent reinforcement, frequent interactions, which we know is best practice also for helping students gain academic growth. Disruptions should be less than 5 in a class period or within an activity. On task behavior, best practice is 90 to 100% of our students are on task at any given time. And then lastly would be our alignment with expectations. So if I'm watching a class, 90 to 100% of the students are on task with whatever my expectations are. So we did a little snapshot just to kind of see where we are currently sitting as a district. And so this is representative of 21 classrooms across the district. And so level 1 is where we want to be. Okay, just keep that in mind. Level 1, that's to maintain what you're doing. Level 2 is caution. We have some things that might be going on we need to address, some interventions we might need to add. Level 3 is stop what we're doing. We got to reassess how we do things in this classroom. And so you can kind of see there that the only area that we are doing decent in right now is disruptions. And let me break it down just a little bit further for you. So the blue bar is level 1. That's where we want to be. Black bar is what we need to grow in. So you can see there that disruptions is the only area that we have more level 1 than levels 2 and 3. Everywhere else, we have significant levels of growth that we need to make in our classrooms. Just to break that down a little bit more, so ratio of interactions. So what I did was I took all of 21 classrooms data that had this information and added it together. So there was a total of 103 positive statements made or positive interactions and 63 corrective. In order for that to be at a ratio of 3 to 1, we'd be looking at more like 190 positives. So we have some growth there. More concerning is the number of interactions. So in a 10-minute time sampling, best practice is 40. We're seeing at 15.6. And then lastly, that number of disruptions, anything less than 5 is where we want to be, and we're at 5.1. We're almost there for disruptions. So we have some room to grow. I also put in there just some additional, this is not within safe and civil schools, but some additional best practices for that ratio. So 3 to 1 is for all students. When you have students with learning disabilities, that goes up to 5 to 1. Our students that have emotional disabilities, best practice is 7 to 1. And then students with backgrounds of trauma is 9 to 1. And when I say, a lot of times people hear that and they think, well, are you handing out M&Ms and stickers? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I'm greeting kids at the classroom door. I'm saying, great job on that work. Hey, you're really trying hard. Those are the kind of comments and things that matter, not handing out M&Ms and stickers to kids. So this is the implementation plan for year 1. Like I said, I do want to note that this is a way of life. This has not become a 1 year and then we're done, like everybody's trained, we're done with this. This has to be continued on a cycle. But with that said, this price is like a year 1 sticker price because it's getting everything up and running and staff trained, coaches trained, administrators trained on how to provide that implementation support, staff trained, and then the following years, those recurring costs are not this $83,000. Those recurring costs are going to be things like we lost 10 teachers, I need to buy 10 new textbooks so that they can have that. Those recurring costs are going to be, you know what, I've got a couple buildings that aren't making the gains I need to, so I'm going to have a consultant come in and help support with that. That's where those additional costs may come, but it will not be this price tag again. This is truly this initial up and running and that boost to get everybody going. So what those look like is service 1 and 2 are working with district and building level administration to get everything up and running, selecting targets and goals and making sure everybody's ready for implementation. Our plan would be that we have that done before admin go on break. So that way they can be sitting and mulling over it while they're on break about how can I implement this, etc. Service 3 is going to be day 1 of 2 for our teachers and admin on campus. There'll be a second day, November 1st, for that follow-up training for admin and teachers. And then service 4 is a follow-up to service 2, which is then, once again, coming back out, working with our staff, making sure that everybody feels comfortable, they can coach on it, troubleshoot it, looking at their data, making sure that we totally understand, like, hey, you know what, I don't have buy-in in this classroom, or we're implementing this, my data, my observation data says this, but my behavior data is saying this. What are we doing wrong? How do we get this corrected? What other things can we look at? That's what that service 4 is going to be. The next line down is just your materials for everything. Like I said, that's a one-time cost except for anytime staff turnover. There's some replacement costs for that. And then the additional staff or additional support 1 and 2, that is not anything that we have to pay for. That's provided by our staff going forward so that all of our paraprofessionals are trained on how to implement. All of our building aides are trained on how to implement. Our child nutrition team, when kids are going through the lunch line, do they know how to use the right language? So once again, we are streamlined across the board. No matter what, everybody knows what we're doing. Whenever we onboard new staff, they're trained on what we're doing. Whenever we have some new substitutes, they're trained on what we're doing. Things like I said, it becomes a way of life. This is who we are as USD 453, and this is the way we do things. So also just to note, the travel is not travel for our staff to go anywhere. This is travel costs for them to come to us. So we would have to pay for their flight, their hotel room, that type of thing. So that's where that travel cost comes from, is for them to come to us. And so your total cost with estimated travel is $83,698.93. What questions do I have?
I got a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so where are they traveling from to see us?
Good question. So I asked that because their trainers could be traveling from, they might be in Kansas City one day. Let's say they were in Kansas City, Kansas, and they had to come to us the next day. Obviously, we're not paying for airfare that day. But it could be the trainer is in Los Angeles and then they're traveling to us. So the way they work that cost is that they will split that with the other district as well. So like we're not paying for a full flight. Their district and our district would split that cost of the flight. So that way then we're working that. If they're traveling to us from their hometown and they've been at their hometown, then we're paying for the full flight.
So this is your best guesstimate of $7,500 for
Yes.
travel.
Yes, so it'd be
which, knowing
$1,500.
Whatever's going on right now in the world, it could actually double.
It could. It very well could. Yes.
So, go ahead, Lisa, sorry.
So this is talking about discipline, behaviors, and consequences. We're getting ready to do, I believe, first, second read on our student handbook. And I think it's pretty detailed on what behaviors are acceptable and unacceptable in the book. Where are we losing it in translation that expectation? This builds it as if we've never had a diagram of any kind of examples of expectations and consequences. I've lived in this district for 22 years. There have always been consequences and examples of you do this, this is going to happen, you're going to get expelled. You show up with a pellet gun, you're expelled. We used to have zero tolerance. You show up in a bathroom with a knife and get in a fight, we used to have zero tolerance. I'm not understanding why post-COVID we've relaxed on that. I understand the isolation and I understand, oh, we left you all here alone. Let's cuddle you and coddle you. But then we've coddled them into allowing more dangerous behaviors. And I don't think we were failing before that because it wasn't escalating the way it is now. I think it's just we kind of got lackadaisical in what we were doing with our students because we weren't enforcing it across the board. And our student handbooks are not different per school. We have one handbook for the entire district. So why is it one school would do one form of implementation versus another school?
I think that's a great question. I think that you've got a multitude of things going on. I think you have different philosophies amongst different leaders. I think that you have different philosophies amongst teachers. I think because there's not one standard flavor of ice cream, if you will, that says this is how we're going to handle these types of behaviors and doing the proactive pieces of CHAMPS. I think that that's why we're starting to see the spiral. But if you remember on my slide, the data from 18-19, right before COVID, our suspension levels are out at right about where we were at. So we had that huge dip off, which, who knows where that kind of
trust me, I know. I've had kids that have gone to school here since 2010, 2011 at the high school. So I've seen it and I've heard all the stories prior to that. So I know it's a roller coaster.
I think that the other thing is that within our handbook, some of the behaviors that are listed are not very black and white. So you might have a very general statement. And so it's kind of like, well, does that really fall within that? For example, we have the closed campus rule. So that's the way people are coding things. I didn't know what that was until I started to investigate, and it became this is what we use for a catch-all. So there was just a lack of consistency and a lack of common language that's what we're trying to work on building. In addition to this work here that we're doing within that task force as well, we've identified behaviors that teachers are dealing with. It could be a one-time behavior. It could be something I'm dealing with a million times a day. And so I just put that list together, and we had 333 different behaviors that staff were able to identify. So our next step with that is going to be, I've got those categorized out. So then we're gonna start coming up with common responses, like here's what you should do. So if Johnny doesn't bring his pencil to this class, we're not calling the administrators for that. That is the thing. Some buildings don't do that. Some buildings that does happen. Sometimes the teacher that's just what happens, right? So like as a teacher, I know if Johnny's not bringing his pencil, here's exactly what I need to do. I need to call parents. I need to have a conversation with Johnny. I need to give him a pencil, right? Like here's the things. Now, if Johnny takes a desk and chucks it across the classroom, that's immediately call the administration. That's immediately do an office referral. I think that we just don't have those structures in place at a level that provides consistency amongst all, which then causes problems when families are confused, right? Because it's like, well, my kid, when they went to David Brewer, this happened, but now they're at the intermediate and this thing over here is happening. Or I went to David Brewer and now I've transferred to Anthony Elementary and the responses are different. Doesn't mean it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just there's no standardized procedures in place for those types of things.
Well, that's why I find some of this really disappointing, because it should have been. Don't know how it
Right.
fell away. So while we're working on these handbooks, students, parents, teachers, shouldn't this be getting implemented in it now instead of this read that we have on now, where we start defining these things immediately, whether we pay for champs or not? There's no reason the task force can't sit here just with common sense and say, hey, this is definitely what we need to do when there's a knife fight in the bathroom. This is definitely what we need to do if our students go across the street getting a brawl in the church parking lot. This is what we need to do if there's a pellet gun in the school.
So can I throw out one more thing to you? So one of the small wrenches, once again, not to say right, wrong, or indifferent, but we talked a little bit about indicator 4, and I mentioned that data. So one of the things that happens whenever we get marked for that is we have to provide copies of all of our policies, procedures, and practices, and they review that. Anytime we have a zero tolerance policy, now let me say, I'll say it's not right, but anytime we have those, we're automatically always going to be out of compliance, because their suggestion is those zero tolerance policies should not exist. So I just want to put that out there as kind of this caveat piece of that's additional guidance from the state that we're also getting.
The state can say that until you don't implement zero policy on some things, and then all of a sudden you've got some kind of tragedy that we've had in other places we don't want here.
Absolutely.
So prevention is the best medicine when it gets to that.
Yes.
That's also the big consequence portion. You can't do this. You did this, you're no longer welcome.
Absolutely.
Period. It would happen. It's supposed to happen in our regular courts of law.
Right. And I will say that the one benefit, one of the many benefits of utilizing a structure like this is the ability to communicate to all families across the district. Here's what our expectations are. USD 453, here's our methodology, here's how we're communicating that. So like, for example, I did use this methodology when I was in the classroom. So on back to school night, my families would walk in and I had a packet ready to go of like, when we do small group, this is what my expectation is. When we do whole group, this is what my expectation is. And they got that packet and walked away with it, knowing exactly what the expectation was. So if I did have trouble with Johnny and I tried my things, I could call the parent up and say, listen, I struggled with Johnny today. This is the chance expectations. And it took away that of, well, you don't know what you're doing, or those things. Like, it took away all questions of that. And so that's another benefit of having across the board, everybody on the same page, is that language then is common for families as well. And families can implement those things. I mean, I used it at Nettie, and we do one of our family engagement activities. We would have families develop some different chance routines for at home. And we had some families that said it really did help, like bedtime routines and those types of things. Like,
I remember that so, being on the site council.
Yeah, so I think it gives some continuity across the district. But you do have some really good points there, yes.
Yeah, I just to a degree. I mean, I'm not saying we can't spend $85,000 on this, but I know at the same standpoint, we keep talking about dropping enrollment. We're not going to have the tax dollars. Let's maybe raise taxes next year. The board's voted to allow that possibility of a tax increase because we don't have enough revenue to cover what else, because we're going to lose students here or exodus there for whatever reason. And some of this is something that we could actually do. I'm confident, because I'm confident in you all, that could be done in-house. It seems like we're paying somebody else to do something we actually have the common sense to do ourselves.
I think I totally understand where you're coming from. I think where one of the pieces is that because this program, the way they have the rollout and the implementation is research-based, I can almost guarantee results. Whereas if we're doing it in-house, like, we can make things happen, but it may not have the same results because we're not doing it in a methodical, type of way, if that makes sense.
And haven't you gotten some other kind of staff training programs in the past? I want to remember that we voted on some kind of staff training that you were going to do, and you were going to be teaching.
So that's crucial conversations, and we have been implementing that. Yes,
right.
Yes,
but I mean, conversations go hand in hand with this.
Absolutely.
Different training.
Absolutely.
So that's why we're having these conversations here now.
I think, can I bring up one more point that as I'm thinking through this? And so back in 2012, remember because I was a teacher here. We did have Safe and Civil Schools. They did a one-day kind of like introduction type of training for everybody. So I was curious how many individuals are still here that went through that initial training. So I can still remember sitting in the auditorium with Randy Sprick. And so I went through and looked at that information. Only 25% of staff remain here that would have went through that training. So I think too, when we think about this type of thing, we talk about lots of training that we do for staff across time. We are not retaining staff at the rate. So it's also makes it interesting to look at. Is that also part of the problem with where we're at now is we've turned over so many staff that we maybe start to get something going, but we don't maintain that over several years to keep it at the forefront. And so then we lose it and then it gets lost. So I just wanted to throw that statistic because I did find
And
that
I get that. And
interesting.
25% actually is a pretty good ratio. And right there, you're train your trainers. Those are the people that have been doing that and know this for that long that actually can help train your other people.
I would say that
A good
a majority
mentorship
of those,
program.
I would say a majority of those, the individuals never got to full implementation though. So like I will say that some of those individuals have amazing classroom management. Like, I mean, as I looked at the list, a lot of them did. And a lot of them were on our task force. But when you look at the true implementation, they got the chance posters down. They got the I need to teach expectations. But when I say, okay, what about Stoic? That's where it falls apart because they didn't focus a lot on that, which is the meat and potatoes of truly champs, is that piece.
Okay.
So basically, they got the one-day overview, but not the full training.
Correct.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about why we didn't do something to this extent prior to now?
That's a great question. We had conversations. I do remember right before COVID, I was a building administrator at Natty. I do remember us having conversations at like our admin meetings about wanting to find some way to streamline things. But I mean, it was right before COVID when we started having some of those conversations, and then COVID hit and that type of thing happened. Not to say that's an excuse, but I remember that kind of derailed that, and it's not ever come back full swing back to this.
So you sound confident that this program will, I mean, what's fair to say? What are you saying? Largely improve our behavior?
What I believe will happen is it will allow us to set high levels of expectations that we can communicate, give staff the ability and power to be able to make decisions in the classroom in the moment on how to correct those misbehaviors and be able to set those clear expectations for students and families so that those things are not getting so misconstrued.
And then can you just restate, what can we as a board hold accountabilities so we can try to make sure and support
Absolutely.
that it doesn't kind of fall off again?
Yep, that's a great question. So like I mentioned before, so I would be intending that every month I would be providing data to you guys on like our board FYI of just, hey, here's where we're at. And then sharing that information out to you. So obviously if you guys are not seeing growth, that's an accountability piece to go, why are we not seeing growth? What are we
Kinda
missing
like
here?
Behavioral percentages based
Yes,
on what?
yeah. So this type of data would be shared with you. In addition, those behavior basics, those 5, whatever our targets are, we would be sharing continual improvement for that. So if we say we're going to improve the number of interactions we have with students in 10 minutes, I would expect to see that data should be increasing and you should see a marked increase each month as we go. And when we're not, when you say, why is this not happening, that we can at least come back and say, well, here's why, and here's what we're doing to correct that behavior, or this is what we're doing to correct this gap that we would have.
And you believe that this system is going to be something that the staff and teachers can implement as a flow? I just don't want to be so focused on behaviors that we lose academics. I want to make sure that whatever we choose fits in well and just becomes a flow of the academic day.
Absolutely. I will tell you that the things that are embedded in here are best practice. They're things that are taught when not all colleges are continuing to do the classroom management type classes, but things that are embedded in this. I remember going through my school education psychology classes and developing my own classroom management plan, and the things I talked about, high expectations, repeating those, explicit teaching of how do you line up, how do you get your device, how do you turn in your homework, everything that's explicit, like those types of things are included in this. The ratio 3-to-1, I learned that, many moons ago back in college. So it's grounded on best practice research.
I'm hesitant to vote for it just because I'm skeptical.
Sure, absolutely, I understand.
But you were definitely speaking my language there, especially at the beginning, not having consistency in application and process or even program, is something I've addressed here prior to TNL department and stuff like that. So
Sure.
I appreciate hearing those things back from you guys, and you'll have my book.
I'd like to say something if I can.
Absolutely.
It seems obvious to me that the handbook doesn't do anything for us, and we've had all this. When you look at these numbers, we have to do something different than what we're doing. And if this is the best method we're going to try, then we need to try it. Because what's going on now is not working. So whether it's a handbook or what we're doing with the kids, but I didn't see or hear anything about parent involvement. I know that's the tough part, but I mean, that to me is a big aspect of behavior.
So I'll speak from you to my personal experience of utilizing some of these when I was an administrator and classroom teacher. So that's where I really honed in on bringing in my expectations, making sure families had copies of that information so that they knew the language, they knew how to reinforce that at home. And then we would do family engagement nights where there's different pieces of this that we would then include in with that training. And keep in mind, I was at Nettie, so I did have a small population, but I do believe that's very easily manageable to explain that. I think it's easy to chunk that out during, whether it's Dr. Adams share out videos that he does, whether that's just, Facebook posts, whether that's, sharing out via peach jar information that we send out to all families. I believe there's a variety of ways you can engage families so that when they hear the word champs, safe and civil schools, stoic, etc., I believe there is a way that you can make it so that families understand and they can support and they can even ask their students how things are going, and their students should be able to tell them, yeah, my chance, truly think about it. Your child should be able to walk through the door. You say, what's your chance expectation for Mrs. So-and-so's small group activity? And they should be able to tell you like that. That's how you know that we've got buy-in from the students and that families can reinforce those strategies and skills.
Well, I think to me, it's simple. We need to get something going because, like I said, what we're doing now is not really working. And it's only, if you figure the numbers, $200 per student is what we're spending actually, which is nothing.
Right.
I would just like to reiterate that I would expect to be briefed on this monthly, because I mean, we had a long conversation, and of course, my first thought was, holy cow, that's a lot of money, and it seems very commonsensical. So why could we not just do this? But I know I see the value in it. My skepticism or my hesitation is, before I was on this board and sitting out there 2 years ago, we had a lot of I heard, listened to the whole discussion about how our kids coming back from COVID, and they just were so traumatized and they couldn't behave, and we needed to have, more SEL, and we needed to, and I just feel like there's so much accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
It concerns me a little bit how much is put on our teachers to adjust their strategy, when we ought to have the default position ought to be that our kids can do it. If you walk in the door, you can do it.
Absolutely.
Not like you can't, and how do I mean, I just feel
We should presume competence.
yes, we should
Absolutely.
presume competence, and also well, I'm just gonna say it. It just seems like we've gone this very, we're infantilizing our kids, and they are perfectly capable if we expect it.
Yep.
And maybe we need something like this. I do see that value. If it became, once you got everybody trained, if it became habituated and everybody was on board, but I also know, I'm a very concrete person, got 2 feet on the ground, that you can talk theories and data and this and everything. And a lot of it comes down to, classroom leadership. And I also don't want to flatten out the personalities of our instructors.
Absolutely.
Because a kid should be able to, deal with different adults with different personalities and different, I understand being on the same methodology, but we ought to assume that they can do that.
Right.
Not that we have to make little adjustments. The adults are always making the little adjustments when, what I feel like we've been on that path for a long time. And what has it gotten us? That we're asking the kids to lead us, and they are begging for leadership, and they have total contempt for the adults in their life. And so, after our conversations, and, I'm willing to give it a try, but the fidelity is important, and I would expect to see some changes.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of things. I'm
Sure.
sorry, were you?
And I'm done.
I'm concerned that we're using a practice that has been in place for so long with new problems. I think that the behaviors that we're seeing are a lot different than in 1985 when this program was first established. How often do they update their materials to make sure that it's relevant to what we're seeing currently in the classroom? Like, when was the last revision done
Yep,
that we would
so
be purchasing?
Last revision was done, I believe, this last year. They just came out with the 3rd edition for champs and the 4th edition for discipline within the secondary classroom.
Okay.
Also, just to note, just a fun fact, if nothing else, the author, developer, Randy Sprick, he developed this program while he was in a self-contained emotionally disturbed program. So that gives you an idea about the level of severity of behaviors he was dealing with. Like, yes, like behaviors definitely changed, and we've gotten a lot more intensive behaviors in our classroom, but the behaviors he would have been dealing with while he worked on developing this would be those more intensive behaviors that you're unfortunately now seeing in those general education classrooms.
So another big concern that I have is that we do have a lot of staff transition and change, and we're investing this money into the staff that we're going to have this coming school year. There's no guarantee that they're going to stay here and keep that. We as a board need to make sure that we have policies that support our administration, and we need to hold Dr. Adams accountable that he's holding the administration to those policies that we have that support the decisions that are being made in the classroom with this program.
Absolutely.
So we have a lot of work to do as a board to make sure that our policies align with what we want to see and support our admin and our teachers.
Well, that was what I was going to lean into. So, like we have purchased programs that are supposed to help with behavior, and here we are, and even more expense to help with behavior. Let's say it kind of falls to the wayside, like it's not supposed to do. What are the consequences on that accountability piece?
I mean,
we need to
ultimately, I think it falls on us as a board that we are failing.
But we also have to look at the exactly how we that's a lot of money, and if it's not falling through, let's say it's great the first year, but then it's year 2, it just kind of like wanes here and out, or it's not working. There's got to be an accountability piece to it.
And I think that to speak just directly to that from just looking at a building administrator level. So all of our building administrators should be, most of them are trained now, but there's a couple that will be finish up their training for crucial conversations. And I think that's what we really tapped into, that set of skills, whereas our administrators maybe didn't have some of those skills to have those more tough conversations. They'll have that skill set, and then there's the follow-up piece that they'll be getting, which is crucial accountability. So when I have somebody that's really struggling, how do I diagnose why are they struggling? Is it a will, or is it a skill? Is it motivation, or is it ability? Once you determine that, then we can really hone in on those conversations and be able to have that. So just wanted to briefly bring that. So as far as building level, those are some tools that we're working on equipping our administrators with so they can have those more tough conversations as they need to.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your work on this and
Absolutely.
everybody that was involved.
Absolutely.
I'm hopeful that this will help. I'm hopeful this will help.
Are we ready for a vote?
Need a motion first.
I know. Would you like to make a motion, please?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the behavior model that is being presented to us today in the total amount of $83,698.93.
Second.
A motion and a second to award the money as established here.
Vanessa.
And that's, huh? What?
Ms.
Oh.
Brenda was asking
Oh,
for
yeah.
clarification to the second.
In the amount of $83,698.93, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. All in favor? 7-0?
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have a restroom break before the next.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Item 7, consideration of flue upgrade at Anthony Elementary. Mr. Dedekey.
Good evening. So in December, the board passed a boiler replacement at Anthony Elementary. We had a failure on that. We have since then installed that boiler successfully as far as the physical components go. In an effort to try and save some dollars at that initial install, we did not include any changes to the flue. While it is a condensing boiler, similar style to the other 2 that we have down there, so we have a total of 3, we are finding that the tolerances for this high efficient boiler are such that the back pressure of the other 2 boilers, when they fire up, are causing it to shut down because there's not enough airflow through that boiler. So what I have for you tonight is a replacement of the 8-inch flue that is a common flue for all 3 boilers currently. The original design supported that. As I said, this newer boiler can't handle those tolerances. The work would be to replace that one with 3 separate flues, and it would prepare us for replacement of the other 2 when it's time at any given time. In addition to this, they all currently rely on a exhaust fan as part of that exhaust system. That would remove a single point of failure, so it actually makes the system a little bit more redundant. So they would all 3 be able to run independent of one another moving forward. So boiler is in, it doesn't operate. When 2 boilers come on, it fails as a safety component. So this would remedy that, and by replacing a single flue and converting it to 3 flues. And that's what I have in front of you tonight for your consideration.
And that's the 36,000.
Yes, 36,487. I will say the reason a lot of that cost is there is the material is a non-corrosive stainless steel pipe, and it is a considerable run to the roof. It has to go through the chimney that exists and then up above the roof line.
How long do you think it will take to do the complete removal and reinstall?
I would say probably less than a month by the time we get everything coordinated. The bulk of it would probably take place within a day or 2. They would have some testing. Part of this also includes the startup again of that boiler. So it's going back, testing it, making sure the burners are running at its sufficient setting, and getting everything ready to go.
I'd like to make a motion, if nobody has any other questions, to approve the helm flue for Anthony at $36,487.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Murphy and second by Mrs. Reed to approve the purchase for $36,487. All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank
On
you.
the roll.
Thanks, Matt.
Number 8. ZROTC capital project update.
Number 8 has the potential to possibly get you fired up. But we did have multiple.
Way to get acclimated to our district,
Absolutely.
Dr. Adams.
We did have multiple of you that requested this on the agenda. So I know I've spoken with at least, I think, 3 or 4 of you at one point in the last month, if not prior to this. So for me, this is really an initial conversation tonight. And the way I'm approaching this is that if you give us direction, we would begin to engage the professionals, i.e. architects, engineers, and so forth, in the design process. But as you know, those individuals do not work for free. And so I do not want to engage professionals and begin paying for work that is ultimately not going to be approved. Whether or not you proceed with the project or not, there's still an amount of work that has to be paid for. It also then is a potential segue to other needs in the district that may or may not be addressed at the same time. I've had multiple of you express a desire for CTE to be expanded, if you will, in some way, shape, or form. And so is there an opportunity here for that as well? So this is a very initial conversation. I've asked Mr. Dedekey to stay at least for this part because he has done some, I would say, very good homework leading up to this. But that was intended to be very open-ended tonight. So no action item other than, I guess, if you will, just kind of that informal conversation.
I was hoping that we would be able to invite the JROTC leadership to brief us. Is there a reason why we weren't able to do
Who?
that? Like Solari or Cogdill to brief the board on what their requests are and why.
And I'm not sure if you're addressing that to me or not. I just did not give that direction. So in fairness to them, they were not given that directive. I'm not
I was
saying
just
we're,
asking you
yep.
why.
Yep. I did not give that directive. If you have that desire, we can certainly make that possible, but I'm going to say
That
the
was my
earliest.
request to you.
Okay.
And so,
Well, not to put First Sergeant on the spot, but should we have questions as we're going through this process to even have a conversation? Would you be available?
Yeah, I'll make it happen.
Like if we wanted to ask you something after Mr.
Our high school principal.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Nessa.
So I know in about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we did an initial I don't know, exploratory work with DLR about an expansion for JRTC and CTE. Are we going to be building from that or starting fresh?
Sure. Great question. So I did ask Matt to dust that off the shelf, so to speak,
Okay.
because I did not want to lose that work. But at the same time, we would need direction from you if that is a starting point or if you want to start from zero. But for what that's worth, you do have some of that initial work that was done 18, 24 months ago. I don't know the timeline exactly. So go ahead, Matt.
So I do have, they were very preliminary plans. I have a couple of those drawings, but it also included some additional work with the gymnasium that we were trying to accomplish at the same time. So that was done just at the end of the last bond, so it was probably 2021 timeframe when we had a little bit of money to spend down. Couldn't get it done for what we had, so we just halted. Going back before that, in preparation for that 18 bond, I think we looked at some options that would have included a growth part for this at the high school. Again, at that time, the other needs for the district's growth kind of outweighed that, so we postponed it with the hope that we could fund it at the end of the 2021 timeframe. I think I'm saying those numbers correct, looking at Beth. So that's kind of where we're at. I do have a general idea of what we had talked about. My recommendation would, if we go forward, is to get input from the stakeholders, kind of redesign from ground up and look at the location as well, what best suits us and the expansion of the programs that we're asking about and what Dr. Adams has mentioned as well.
Okay.
So for our newer board members, can we have the conversation as to what the need is that we're trying to address?
I don't have the request in front of me. So this was an item brought to my attention that it was being brought up this evening. As part of my annual review for the district, I look at the needs for the entire district. So that's improvements of buildings, grounds, expansions, whatever we're needing. This kind of fits into that. I had a placeholder in there for a smaller addition years ago. I think briefly, I have about $40 million sitting in a 5-year plan of things that we could be doing to this district to make it better. This is a small piece of that. So the request was just recent to bring this up in front of the board tonight. So the exact need, I don't have. That would be a question back to our ROTC commanders to see why they're requesting it this time.
how much notice did you get about this?
About this piece for this evening?
Yes.
I've had it for about a week or so, a couple weeks. As I don't want to misrepresent and say I just found out like today that this was going to happen. But I think it was not soon enough to really get a ton of information. I did have an opportunity to talk to our architects to get those prints dusted off, as Dr. Adams said, and to get a ballpark number where we would be at if we were to build. And I will say the cost of construction has gone up probably $50 to $100 a square foot since we built in 2018. So we're looking at $350 to $400 a square foot potentially, depending on your outfitting inside. I think when we were in our bond, we were around $250 a square foot. Actually, $250 I think worked out about right for LIS. It was about a $15 million build for about a 60,000 square foot building. This one is a 20,000 square foot building that they gave me a number on. Low end was 6. They said it's probably higher to 8 to 9 million, depending on how we outfit it and have a lot of pieces that go to it. So I think that pushes up the cost of the build as well. So we didn't put a lot of time and effort into the design or what we're going to talk about tonight, because I think, as Dr. Adams mentioned, this is opportunity to get direction for us and our team so we can take it back, have those conversations, and then come back at a later date, possibly with a 5-year plan discussion to see where that fits with other projects and programs.
My understanding from meeting with some of the gym teachers and some of the JROTC leadership was that it's a indoor heating cooled floor usage availability space issue. Even the robotics currently is very tight. And also a reason was given, the reason the students have to sometimes come in so early that are part of the JROTC program is just so that they're not in there when other things are going on. So my takeaway was it just needs to be a slab with walls that's heated and cooled. And my understanding is if we could get that up, they could add lockers later. They could add any fluffy, fun things later, but they don't have lockers now in the gym kind of thing. You know, just bringing it back to the basics so we could find room in our current budget, not have to do anything outside of that is what appealed to me.
Okay.
In order to get it done, meet the need, and move on kind of thing. So.
Yeah, my concern about doing just the drawings that were put in our board notes or whatever, if you did the big elaborate one, we would have to do a bond, is my understanding, to build that facility. And there's a lot of good that, multiple use for something like that. But then we're also dealing with, are we going to have the student population, and what are the changes going to be? And I would hate to ask taxpayers to build something big and elaborate and we don't have the number of students or it's not being utilized. So I'm kind of online with what Vanessa was saying about do the basic.
I would like to make a note, we don't look at just our student population for JROTC. We have them from the 9th grade. We have them from several other community schools that attend, from Lansing, and I can't even remember all the schools, but I know we have several student bodies that are bodies in that program.
And homeschoolers also, I believe.
And homeschoolers also.
So Matt, on those original concept drawings, it wasn't just all or nothing, it was different options.
So the original set of plans included some expansion for the auditorium, or not the auditorium, the gymnasium, to get some additional seating. There was one that was a standalone that might have been in your packet that we shared that showed more of an open concept with some restrooms and that type of thing. I think the cautionary piece here from my side would be this. We could potentially build something very bare bones. Not often have I seen this district do anything bare bones. We do it right. We want to do it right for the community and for the longevity of the programs that we serve. If we put something in that is a single story bare bones, could we have maximized our square footage or spend if we would have put together CTE space or other spaces that are needed for a little bit more and got more bang for our buck? Those are the conversations I think would be important to have before we quickly move to a spend out of capital to achieve one goal, when we could potentially, and unfortunately, maybe look at a bond or what that would look like 3 to 4 years down the road.
My underlying point is that I don't think it's fair to anybody to not move on this issue that's been on the table for a long time to a program that's doing wonderfully. And it will help our current gym teachers and gym classes. It will help our current students who are part of all of those programs. It will help the students that are a part of robotics, which is open to everybody, because we may or may not be able to pass a bond issue. And so I'm not suggesting that we don't do it right. I am trying to suggest that we do it right.
And I don't want to, I didn't mean to say that you were saying not to do it right.
Yeah.
But I think we always try to excel at what we do.
Right.
So if that's a building, it's going to look great. it's going to function, and we're going to plan ahead so that there are lockers, there are the amenities that we need to have to use that space for our overflow gym if that was necessary. We do have a lot of activities at the high school. There's a lot of scheduling conflicts up there. And I think what we're looking for tonight, if I can restate what Dr. Adams is, we just need direction how to move forward.
So you're talking about, because I know there's bathrooms in that hallway that would be looking onto the lawn and in the space where we're talking about.
Those are small restrooms. So when we have new construction, there's a lot of codes that we have to comply with.
Yeah.
When we add different square footages, we have to take into account what type of square footage that is. And I'm not going to pretend to know all of those, but there may be tied to that a certain number of restrooms or toilets per the population of that space. Just like our stadium, I think we have 37 women's restroom toilets in there because that stadium can host 6,000 people.
Sure.
Or 5,000 people. So there's some of those things that we may be required to have by code that increase our costs as well.
I guess that would be interesting to see if we could tie into that wing or not, you know.
I will say standalone buildings will be easier
Yeah.
than a tie-in. If you remember our secured entry, trying to tie that into an existing structure created a lot of challenges. I think the location, we would want to look at that for drainage and any other challenges that space may have being on that lower level.
Those are just to,
Yeah.
for transparency, some of the comments I got, like, well, why would you need to build bathrooms? There's bathrooms right there. So I think for public buy-in, it's necessary to show that we went through these steps and these are the, yes, that will work, or no, this won't work, and here's the reason.
Yeah.
Just for transparency for everybody. And so we can answer questions as a board when we're out in the community and we get questions about it. We want to be able to confidently say, this is what we're doing, this is what we had to do to meet this goal, and this is the price tag that was necessary for us to achieve it. And so I'm just looking to you to give me those things.
There's enough room just north of the athletic entrance for about a 15,000 square foot structure. I don't think we need to think about brick and mortar. It's going to drive up the cost even more. And we've got a company up in St. Joe, Missouri, which is local, but that's their specialty is metal buildings, and they can make some really nice ones.
But I think what we're asking for is basically give us some options.
Yeah.
2 to 3 options, what we can, what's got to meet code, how it's got to be space-wise, whatever,
Okay.
and not just be a single function facility. So 2, 3 options.
Well, one of my thoughts on this whole thing that I started thinking about was when we had the board meeting over in that area. And I wanted to see the DECA program have a better space, but that one room, I think, with a screen print is ridiculous.
Right.
I'm surprised we haven't had some injuries in there. And open up that space for the DECA program, which is a great program, have plenty of room at the other end. 15,000 square feet, if you said 350 square foot is about 5 million.
So for clarity on my part,
Yeah.
and we can get this more from the individuals that are going to be living in that space, are we looking for just a drill space for ROTC? Are we looking for classroom space as well? I'm not sure if I was following for the DECA, what space they would take over.
Well, if we
didn't,
built, maybe I'm making it too simplistic. If we built a standalone system or building,
Mhm.
like I said, north of the entrance, that would open up that space over there. There'd be enough room for classrooms and wherever you wanted in that size.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah,
clarify.
I mean,
I
that's
think we'd have
just
to
what
realize
I'm
how
thinking.
usage,
Okay.
square foot usage would be
Okay.
affected.
Well, if the direction is to have an architect engage with us and spend some time and money with them, then I would ask Dr. Adams for any further direction, or the board to give me direction exactly, and I can come back with some options.
And you can implement your dream board. Give all your dreams. No,
Kids.
no, I know, but we got to have that vision so that they even know who to talk to, or, okay. I do have curious about the standalone building. And I know you mentioned that to me too. How safe is that considering we're in Tornado Alley?
Real safe.
Usually are they?
Mhm.
Okay.
They're all over the community.
Too.
I've seen barn style
Big
buildings.
giant sheds just fly up in the dirt.
Do we need a
So-
consensus from,
Well, to my point earlier, I've received a lot of input from board members, and tonight I'm asking for direction from the Board of Education. And so that's why I felt like it was important to have this conversation at the dais. Does that make sense? And so what I think I've heard is that she would like us to bring back multiple options for multiple usage applications, everything from the bare bones all the way through, if you will, a progression that includes tying on to the adjacent building. Did I properly encapsulate what I think I've heard tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think you can probably work from.
No, what does the architect cost? Like, I mean, we like vote on a cap, like, you know, you can go.
You're gonna be
far,
paying.
But I mean, because you
You
can
gotta
just
get
keep
the
going
architect
and going and
involved.
going. and-
You're going to be paying principal hours, sometimes in excess of $150 to $175 an hour. That's probably a minimum going rate.
And that was why I made the point that we've done some of this
Some of this was
as a
done.
concept with DLR prior.
Mm.
So we have something to work from. We're not starting from scratch. Should be something to work from. Are we going to go with DLR again?
My proposal would be you stick with the company that you're well aware of, that is engaged in this process, and that has already started this work.
So
I've
what was
not
the
heard-
reason why we didn't talk about it further? I think that was prior to my.
At the time, because it was the full blown exceeded our capacity of
During the
capital
bond,
outlay.
yeah.
We didn't have the budget for it.
So no one is willing to look at a single use building if it fits in our budget.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying just come
Okay.
back with options because
Okay.
the prices have changed.
Yeah.
What are the concepts that we're looking for? Because
Yeah.
different players may be in, stakeholders may be involved of, here's my dream, here's my vision.
Right.
I know that's a change from the first start, but there are other people that may have impact. So I think we start from what we had. I mean, it's not perfect, but start from what we had and come back with 2-3 options for the board.
So, Mrs. Overby, to your question, it's considered a service, not required to be bid, but I would propose that we would stop at the design development phase before ever moving on beyond that. Is everybody okay with that? So we would pause
Yep.
at the design development phase and bring you back proposed options. At that point, then the board could take further action to give us further direction.
I think it's
So I want you to know where the stopgap would be. Does that make sense?
I think it's important that we make sure that in those conversations, we include the people that will be using the space, like the JRTC program. And if we're expanding beyond that program for different uses, like the CTE programs, making sure that those facilitators are a part of that. So that the space that we build them is what they actually need.
I concur. The direct users of the facility
Yeah.
should always be involved in those conversations.
What they need.
Right. The needs, not the wants, just the needs.
if I can add one other piece, in preparation, if we have selected this location west of the auto tech in that lower space, the reality is I need to look at soil compaction. So that testing would have to also be taking place while we're kind of in this process to say if it's usable or not.
Okay.
Or if it's going to require some kind of remedy to make it
Right.
firm enough, or if it's going to take footers or piers. So if the board's okay with that, there will be an expense for that as well. And I would say that's going to be several thousand in my past experience with what we've looked at. And that'd probably be a handful of cores to sample, or most likely it's going to be
And we
clay.
would have to do that regardless of what we're building.
We would, and this
Yeah.
would at least give us the target of this
Right.
isn't any, this is not a good place to go, or it should be fine with this remedy, or as it is.
All that reason I brought that area up because it's the only green space we got left around the school. Unless we want to take the practice football field, and I don't think we want to do that.
I think the people donated testified nothing could be built on that.
And the process of the soil sampling that you're talking about is similar to what we did when we did the expansion at Henry.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep. It's just looking at its compaction.
Okay.
So if that's the
The
direction,
consensus of the board is to move forward.
Do you feel good with what our direction is?
yes, if I could just repeat, three or more options from the basic up. We'll do soil samples, estimated cost. These will be high level, just get an idea of where everybody's at. We will include the stakeholders at the high school level that would be living in this space.
Yes.
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 And we'll have your next report by the next board meeting.
I will not guarantee that. Architects, this is their busy time of the year with schools. think there's some changes that I heard about today within our little group that was working with us. So I need to catch a couple people up, and we'll get us going as quickly as we can.
How long does this sample take, did you say?
Usually the soil samples I can have before the next board meeting.
Okay, cool.
But Matt, what I do think we could commit to is a regular update at each board meeting, right?
I believe so.
Whether that be from professional services on where they're at to our timeline, et cetera, right? We could at least commit to some form of an update at each board meeting. Yep.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 9.
Somebody in a hurry all of a sudden?
I do see some
It's time,
purple
sir.
on tonight by folks. Mr. Potter's going to talk to you about the significance of the color purple.
So purple, April is month of the military child, purple being a signifying color. So some of us got the memo, others maybe can wear it out the rest of the week. We've updated the board a few times in written format on the Purple Star Recognition Program. That began in 2021 by the Military Child Education Coalition as a way to formalize and standardize support of what military connected families can expect, especially knowing that they move from school district to state to country on a routine basis throughout active service. And there's other specific support systems that military connected students do require. So consistent with our strategic plan, specifically under family and community involvement, it aligns nicely with Purple Star Kansas's mission, which is a designation program that recognizes schools that show a major commitment to students and families connected to our nation's military. So I became aware of Purple Star about a year ago, and that was when the state of Kansas for the first time awarded designation of 4 different school districts, that being Mulvane and Derby nearest McConnell, Erie County nearest Fort Riley, and Fort Leavenworth. So I would have liked to have been part of that first wave, but as soon as we saw those awarded, we knew we needed to be next in line. Fast forward to basically documenting the majority of things that we've done as a district forever. In some ways, our school system stood up because of the formation of Fort Leavenworth. So we've always been there in support of military connected. The pieces we were missing in terms of the compliance list to get through the State Department of Education and ultimately the State Board of Education were specific footprints on our website to make it as easy as possible for military families as they're comparing districts to find here's where I need to go. That part was done, and you can see that on our website where that lands today. We were also missing some training opportunities, which is, again, the specific supports and transitions and resiliency that our staff need to be aware of. So we took that into account in September of this year, where we hosted a training that Military Child Education Coalition actually put on for us here. And that was attended by all of our principals, counselors from each building, and at least 1 staff member from each building. It wasn't necessarily anything new because, again, we've been doing lots of those things over time, but it was another formalized checkbox opportunity for us. And again, some of the other things that you see on there are things that this board recognizes and I think knows that we do. Like we have the biggest Veterans Day event, west of Mississippi. We don't just have a JROTC program, we have the best JROTC program. So those are all opportunities for us to checklist how we support, but it also goes down into our lower levels. Like you see military friendly events where we're inviting veterans into the elementary school. So for us to apply, the application was submitted in February and required support from all of our schools. Part of that's making sure that there's a point of contact associated with each school, as well as a district point of contact, which is myself. And we're all used to these incoming inquiries for potential families moving in, and all dedicated to making sure that we provide as much information as possible. The origination for the program, as much as anything, was to help make sure that as students were moving around, especially at that middle and high school level, they weren't missing out on credits because the things change from state to state. So again, it's an opportunity for us to formalize the process. In March, we were notified that we did receive selection for State Board of Education. We're the only school district this year, so that makes us 5th in the state. And then last week, the State Board of Education actually had us on the agenda. We invited representatives from the high school. You see a friendly face there to the right third, and Danny Zeck. So as a state board member, he's obviously familiar with all the things that we've done historically here in Leavenworth. So what you're seeing is not anything really new, but a formalized commitment to our military families, and helps to distinguish us from other districts because families do have a choice in terms of where they're moving. And we hope that this instills some confidence in our military families. So what I think you see before you, and I don't have the wording on it, is an optional resolution that this Board of Education could pass, which would be consistent with the state board's identification of us as a Purple Star. There's no costs associated with it, and it would be something we would post on our website. Moving forward, we've been told that the application process might make this as a requirement, so that it would be a flip process where we'd be getting the resolution from the local Board of Education and then submitting that off with the state. But that was not how it was processed this year. So what we did was make sure that we had those trainings in place, make sure that our website was correct, make sure that all of our elementary schools all the way up had all the identifiers necessary to get selected. So again, what's presented in front of you as a resolution that would be voluntary, it would certainly be in line with already approval. So it's not going to make a matter. It's not going to make a difference one way or the other. This recognition program lasts for 3 years. And at the end of year 2.5, we basically be reapplying. I'm sure that we will have all these things in place and maybe even some new things. And we definitely would hope to continue status as a Purple Star district.
Thank you.
Yep. So if anybody would like to read, because I don't have that text in front of me.
Mr. President, I move the adoption of the following resolution, 2324-021 Purple Star. Whereas over 1 million Americans are bravely serving in the United States Armed Forces Services. Whereas over 15,000 children in the state of Kansas are members of military families. And whereas 13% of the Leavenworth Public Schools USD 453 student population are military connected. And whereas students who have parents in military may experience unique challenges as a result of their family's military service, including attending multiple schools. And whereas frequent moves, family separations through deployments, and reintegration can cause academic difficulties for youth. And whereas Leavenworth Public School USD 453 is committed to meeting the unique needs of all students, especially those of military youth. Therefore, be it resolved by the Leavenworth Public Schools USD 453 Board of Education that it offer gratitude and support for all military personnel, their families, and veterans, and be it further resolved that Leavenworth Public Schools USD 453 will establish a designated point of contact at each building to support and connect military families with the resources they need. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, that the board shall exercise the power granted by law and by this resolution adopted on this day, 15th day of April 2024 by the Board of Education, United School District number 453, Leavenworth, Kansas. Attested, Board of Education of Unified School District 453, Leavenworth County, State of Kansas.
Second.
We had a motion on the resolution and second by Mrs. Wells. All in favor? Make sure you hang around to sign it,
In blue.
whatever.
No purple?
No, blue.
Sign it.
Tomorrow you're supposed to wear
Not on
blue
this
to
one.
prevent child abuse.
Good evening. So starting with Earl Lawson Early Education Center. Now we're talking high school graduation. So we're taking full circle. So Mr. Bannock and I are happy to address any questions you may have on the 3 policy changes in front of you. A little bit of background that I know is in your board packet. This is a reflective of 2 rationale. First being that the Kansas State Department of Education has adjusted those graduation requirements, and those go into effect for next year's freshmen, the class of 2028. So this addresses policy to reflect that, as well as the market value assets that will be required for graduation as part of those requirements. So it meets that shifting moving forward. The second piece is a return to a 7-hour schedule based on feedback that Mr. Bannock received from students and staff, as well as to address some of the moving in of military connected families, help them get the credits for graduation, and some of the transition needs. So trying to meet a couple different targets with one set of policy changes related to graduation. With that, we're open to any questions you may have.
It's important that we move forward with this to be able to comply with the KSDE regulations. So this is a first read for us. Are you asking us to take action as well?
I believe it is listed as an action item. We would love for you to approve today, so Mr. Vanna can finalize his enrollment processes. Get things rolling for his students.
I just have one question for clarification. So JFCA and IHFB are identical in wording. There's nothing different about them. I know one is supposed to be about graduation requirements and one is about early graduation. Since they're identical in wording, do we need to have them as separate, or can we do something minor as in, this is our graduation policy, and then, oh, if you're an early graduate, like the second paragraph, I think is where it addresses the request. I just don't, why do we need to have identical policies under two different namings? Because they are word for word the same.
We have an early graduation policy at the high school that's kind of specific to those that want a requisition and graduate semester.
I get
compared to
that.
Those that want to just be on like an early release second semester. So they're kind of two different.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that we're saying one is our early graduation policy and one we're saying is our graduation policy. They are the same. There's no difference in wording. So me, speaking from my day job as an editor, we're duplicating effort. I would say we need one so we don't have people confused. And then if we have to, like the second paragraph is, early graduation requirement or whatever, instead of having two separate policies that say the same thing, word for word.
I would defer that back to the board when Ryan and I were going through board policies, looking for these things to change. These were all the ones that had, the 26 graduation requirement credits in there. So those are the ones we all found that needed to be adjusted.
So if it doesn't create a second, third order issue that we're not aware of, we don't have an opposition to that. That was just based on how board policy was currently written, so we just amended what was already there.
I would just like to see one policy so that we don't have issues with one got updated, the other one doesn't. I just know we have version control when they're identical.
Yep.
Pick one for the numbering. Just a suggestion.
So Beth, I'm looking at you. We go through a June or July, I don't know which month, semi-annual update, right? And that's when it usually mirrors everything that was changed during the latest legislative session, correct? But there's a timeliness component for this tonight. Is that accurate, Mr. Bodensteiner?
Yes.
Okay. One way to remedy this, I'm just suggesting this, Ms. Price, is that we would approve these and then clean that up by omitting the one that no longer is or is duplicating effort. Does that make
I
sense?
totally agree with that.
And I think we'd be comfortable with that.
Does that make sense what I just, okay.
Do we have a motion?
We are kindly requesting a motion.
Do you just want one big giant motion
For graduation policy.
for graduation policy? Like to make a motion to approve the new rationales for graduation requirements and policies, which include the JFCA, IHF, and the IHFB.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Murphy, second by Mrs. Reed to adopt the
Graduation policies.
Yeah, I know that, but we have to put the JDIF on there. Graduation policy. All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, I'm looking to you to possibly help here, if you would. So we're ready for number 11, Mr. Carney, right? Okay. So DJFA currently has a sunset of June 30, 2024, and it deals directly with the purchasing authority that is granted to the superintendent and the CFO's position. Our concern was the timing of this in relation to what I just brought up with the semi-annual updates. There could be a lapse in that authority, and that would certainly have a significant concern for us as it relates to summer projects and the other things that come up throughout each month. What we're proposing is the extension of that by 2 fiscal years. So the new sunset would be June 30 of 2026. No changes to the structure of the policy.
I have no problem with that. I'd like to make a motion to amend the policy as stated.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Wells, second by Mrs. Murphy to extend the policy. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
To the 2026 year?
Two fiscal years, correct.
All in favor? 6-1. We're moving right along here. with student handbook.
We're at staff first.
Yep, I'm just looking to
Oh,
the
yeah,
folks
staff
that were
handbook.
involved with the edits here. So Amy, are you coming up for staff handbooks?
These are just,
These are first read. Yep.
only.
Yep.
Yep, first read only. So if you have any corrections, you would just send those to Mr. Potter or Ms. Troyer or myself, any of us. Actually, Amy Jo, I got pointed to. So Amy Jo will work on those changes. So we'll bring it back next month as hopefully approval.
So 4 total documents. 3 are considered staff documents. So you have an administrator, a certified, and a classified. And then I am very appreciative for this. We have 1 student handbook across the district.
So
Is that-
you're talking right now about 12.1 and 13.1 as a whole.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So 4 total documents that we're seeking your feedback, suggestions on. I believe May 1 was what we requested. Is that accurate, Mr. Potter? Right? May 1 was the date, right? Just for timing, because we're going to be posting the agenda by May 8. And so that gives his office enough time to put the edits, so forth, into those documents.
Could I reinstate my want to have some of the policies that have been mentioned in the package that we just purchased for behavior be added to these handbooks in advance of that May meeting?
My question was, are you wanting them in the staff handbooks or the student handbooks?
Well, staff needs to know what they're doing and the students need to know what's expected of them
So both.
along with the parents.
Okay. So yes, I think we can. We'll need to evaluate that.
I know you won't be able to get 100% of it in there.
Sure.
I know things would have to be edited or whatever and revised and say, by the way, we've got a revision to the handbook and we could vote that in.
Right.
It's digital now. It's not in print. But I think it would be a good course of plan with expectations, especially for the new school year.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I didn't see, correct me if I missed it, any of the verbiage that we have on maybe an unofficial policy regarding maybe transitioning students and bathroom usage and pronoun usage and all that kind of stuff.
I would say that's not in there because it would be considered practice and not policy. Correct.
So I think, there's been some staff members that were very upset when that was handled in January, the way that it was handled. And if you are given a letter or you're, in a staff meeting where those kind of things are being addressed, as you should do this way, what's different? What makes that special instead of it being school policy? And I think, I guess I'm interested to know if there's what other areas you could give for examples that would be at that level. I mean, those are big things to students, families, and staff and community. And so just trying to kind of feel that out and see if that makes sense, that it's not part of the staff handbook or the student handbook, if staff and students may or may not know those expectations or how they will be treated or addressed or how things will be handled. Just kind of trying to feel that out, fill out what makes sense. When we talk about turnover, we absolutely lost staff members directly related to that and how that was handled. So I would just like to see if there's a way that it could be, very, very forward in the student handbook, in the staff handbook. This is the respect we give to those students and families. This is the way we handle those situations. This is the respect we give to our staff, and this is the way that we handle those situations from a staff perspective.
And to be clear, you're talking about our transgender youth policies, right? Okay. And or staff as well.
Correct.
So anything relating to Title VII and or Title IX, is that accurate?
Right.
Okay. So I will tell you that prior to this, the direction I have been given is to always maintain that as a practice and never codify it into policy language. I'm certainly open to that conversation, but I'm just telling you that's been the direction that I've been given to date. So That would be the rationale
And
as to why it's
I'm
not
not
in there
trying to
now.
go against the board if I missed the boat on that public conversation from the board. But I didn't remember having that conversation as a sitting board here in a public way.
Nope.
Since I had been on.
We haven't. I said, we haven't discussed that
No.
openly.
Other questions, thoughts?
So what Vanessa is talking about, is that something that would need to be written up and proposed to be added by a board member or a community member or somebody? Is that what you're asking? Is that it's added to it? Because it's not.
Well, I'm assuming it would be board created policy. I'm assuming is how the rest of
Oh.
our policies are.
I
You
think
have
we
a
need to
board
come back
policy.
to codified
Policy.
you,
Right.
not to put it in as policy and just keep it as a practice. Was that a legal advice
Correct.
from our attorneys?
Not from Mr. Hingula, no.
Okay.
Yeah, but if there's discussions regarding what's legal advice and what to do or not to do, that's attorney-client
Executive
privilege.
session.
That should be discussed during executive session.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is a desire to consider that and be codified into student handbooks and/or staff handbooks. Okay. Anything else? May would be the ideal time frame for approval, just so we can get those printed, published on the website, et cetera, for purposes of enrollment and all that.
Moving right along to number 14.
Yep. So 14 and 15 are going to dovetail well together. Hopefully you see that congruence. So with that, Mrs. Sloan, take it away.
Okay, so we are bringing back board policy JBCC. And we're going to start with this just so you have two documents that you know. You can refer to this document as I'm going through my PowerPoint. This would be the actual document that I would ask for the board approval once I'm completed my presentation. This would then be placed on our website that we are required per the new policy and the state statute. So you'll see our projections as well as our open seats. So this is a one-page easy document to read. And then if you follow along at the very bottom, it will tell you the next steps as far as our district and what we will do. I'm going to go ahead and just give you some updates or just kind of refresh your memory from the JBCC policy that you approved back in December. So we'll just switch over to the presentation. Thank you, Ryan. So in all honesty, this policy affects all of our pillars as far as every single one of our departments. And so we could tie it into any of our strategic plan with regards to goals. The open enrollment timeline, our focus today is only capacity. You already approved the board policy. You've set the policy. Now, every year, we have to, at this time of year, come back. So next year we'll do this. We'll come back. We set the capacity and we set how many open seats we have based off of our projections. So I'm going to share with you just some data just to kind of review what we shared back in September. This is exactly what you've seen in October based off of our September 20th count. Everybody knows our enrollment was down. This was based off of our FTE. This is not audited. That is happening this spring. So this is unaudited. We were down 124 students, just to remind you. Enrollment by building. I share this because there's a pattern. We used our historical enrollment as well as our staffing to help with our projections, our open seats. So you will see as a school district over the last 6 years, our enrollment is trending down. If you recall, I shared previously with this board, we have had 3 outside studies done in my tenure down here. All 3 project us to continue to decline in enrollment. Non-resident. So we used to call them out of district. Whenever I would come to you and I would present to you our enrollment, we have in district. They are in our district and they can choose to go to another school. Out of district, I'm just going to refer to them as non-resident. They do not reside within the boundaries of our district. You'll see That has also declined over the last 6 years as far as our non-resident students, and this is by building over the last 6 years. So this year, currently, we had 149 non-resident students at various buildings. And as you can see, the high school is our largest as far as non-residents for multiple reasons. Educational capacity. This is a requirement of the board policy that I tell you what your educational capacity is. This is not how many people we can fit into a room or into a building. This is in order to provide instruction, education. This is how many students that you could have. And then what you'll see in the second column is actually the current enrollment and then the educational capacity. If we were ever to be at capacity with regards to educational. So it's space for education. So it's accounting for not hallway space. It's where you provide education. It's classroom, the music room, the PE room, things like that. Our student enrollment projections. I simply took our students and I moved them a grade forward. So if you're a first grader, I took those first grade numbers and I moved them to second grade. Does that make sense? So I took everybody, assuming everyone is returning, our enrollment is projected to decline again next year, 114 students. I do want to draw your attention to a couple of things that I've identified here. The first being the high school. You'll see that box, 9th grade, is marked 245. That is a moving target. Mr. Vanek and Mrs. Cole and I worked on this for some time, and they provided and we confirmed we average roughly 50 students just from Patton Junior High. They're 9th grade through Patton Junior High at Fort Leavenworth, but they choose to come to the high school because they want to go ahead and get enrolled because most likely they're going to stay with our school district for more than 1 year, or they want the opportunities that we have that may not be offered at Fort Leavenworth. This is a tradition that we've had for years. We anticipate that number. Well, it says 245. I just moved my 8th graders over, right? So I don't have my Patton kids included in that number. Also, if you look down under Lawson, that is a moving target as far as numbers. And I want to remind you, I only went ahead and included this for the purpose of the presentation, but your policy JBCC is only required for grades kindergarten through 12. So pre-K, early childhood special education, we can set those numbers at whatever we want. The state does not require, it's only K through 12. So in my next slide, you'll see they drop off. But the reason I highlight those in black, pre-K, preschool, and kindergarten are not required in the state of Kansas, right? So that number, a lot of times we'll see our first grade jump up. And so I went ahead and just rolled over the current numbers because I have no idea what my numbers are going to be. Now, this next slide. These are our open seats by grade. I want to draw your attention to the black highlighted student to teacher ratio. The very first one, you'll see K through 12, and you'll see that we have 16 seats, and I have it set at 30. That is actually your virtual school only. We have 1 teacher for virtual school. The caseload is 30. So right now we know we have 14 students that are planning to return. We anticipate, so therefore I have 16 openings. We went ahead and worked that all the way through all of our grades. You'll notice some of you may see 5th through 8th, there are no open seats. That is because based off of what we said our ratio is, we're already above that. Now, some of these numbers have been set based off of staffing. We have open positions all year long. On your staffing report that I will be presenting to you, we have 2 kindergarten resignations. I'm not going to go ahead and continue to increase or allow out of district knowing that I'm short on staff. So not only did we just do our ratio, we also considered our staffing based off of current staffing. And then our goal is to be fully staffed 100%, but we have to plan for those potentially open positions. So it is the recommendation of the district administration. We worked with all of our building administration
so they could have feedback on this as well. We looked at our student to teacher ratio, and we feel very comfortable knowing you see 160, but if I go back, our traditional out of district is only 149 just this year. So we're well above what we normally average, and we anticipate that this is very normal. I do want to draw your attention to the high school one more time. They're taking the most seats in 9th grade, 85. We anticipate 50 of those seats will be for our Patton kids. And then typically we get new kids into a high school at the entry level, which is our freshmen. And then of course we're setting those at 330 per class. 330 as far as the grade level, 330 freshmen, 330 sophomores, and so forth. So I give you back, if you want to go ahead and put that other sheet back up, I would ask that we do have to have a motion. We would like for you to, we are asking that you approve this for us to allow us to go ahead and post this sheet, this information on our district website, and then you'll go ahead and see the next steps, which are in line with your board policy JBCC.
Is there any discussion? I move to approve the enrollment projections in Table 1 and the number of open seats available to non-resident students in Table 2.
Second.
Judy, you second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Price to go ahead with the enrollment plan. All in favor? 7-0. 7-0. Thank you, Jamie. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. I'll keep it brief as the night is already worn on long enough. I believe I see her in the crowd, if I'm not mistaken. Our very own Mrs. Liz Anstein. If you would stand up, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Region 2 semifinalist for the 2025 Kansas Teacher of the Year. We're so blessed to have her here in this district. Mrs. Anstein, we want to wish you the best of luck as you move on to represent our district at the statewide recognition level. I believe that final decision is rendered sometime in the fall. So there's numerous extra steps that come up here, including, I believe, a visit from the State Department as early as next week. And of course, other things along the way. So nonetheless, we are so proud of you. Thank you, Mrs. Anstein.
Thank you.
This is just a reminder, our last, what we've dubbed as Coffee with Kellen is scheduled for next Wednesday, April 24th, right here in this room from 7:15 to 8:45. These have and continue to be planned and hosted as informal opportunities to meet with myself and community members to strengthen those connections outside of school. So just wanted to put that on your calendar if we can. And then finally, even though we're going to go over the slew of other dates in April and May, one of which I really want to draw attention to tonight is the upcoming district art show on Friday. And that will take place in the LHS main gym. That date is Friday, 26 April from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. And all are welcome to attend this free event. We're so thankful for our Education Foundation for sponsoring that. Mr. Carney, that is all I have.
I have a question for you, Dr.
Yes,
Adams.
ma'am.
Based on the Coffee with Kellen, how is that being received? Is this something that you plan to continue? Is it valued by the people that are coming? Are you seeing new people every time? Tell me about it.
Sure. So to be candid, our attendance has been low. I don't know if that's a time of day issue, day of the week issue. I'm honestly looking for feedback because this is something I want to continue. But at the same time, if it's not adding value, I don't want to have that and be wasting anybody's time. So
because this is something that you brought with you from your prior district.
That is accurate.
And so your experience from your previous district to this one it's not as successful.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you doing this monthly? You're doing this monthly,
Yep.
correct?
And we started only in the second semester, Mr. Potter. I think our first one was January, maybe, or February. So
Yeah, maybe quarterly.
Okay.
It might work out better
Why
quarterly.
don't you have a steak dinner with Dr. Adams?
There you go.
Yeah, I bet you get people to show up.
Just do hot dogs.
sincerely,
Chewing the fat with Kellen.
I know you're saying some of that tongue in cheek, but I'm looking for whatever will bring people out. So
Hot dogs bring love.
Can,
I was in marketing.
I would say, can we do a survey to see, but I don't know.
sure. Jake, would you like to do a survey about that?
No. Yeah, I mean, that's not,
I'm sure a lot of it has to do with work and getting students
Yeah.
to school.
Sure.
Enough of this frivolity. Let's move on.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we at? Oh, 18.
how much time do we need? Can we have another bathroom break, please? I'm going to anyway.
We're
I
at
have a
17. Yeah, 17.
uncomfortable bladder. I'm old. Okay, Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that we return to open session in this room in 20 minutes. And I'm terrible at math, so somebody please do that for me.
9:09.
Thank you. The board would like to invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, Beth Maddox, and Robert Hingula.
Did you say you want to add a bio break?
Yes.
Second.
I did. It was in there.
You already did.
I didn't get, who made the motion in here?
She made the
I
motion.
Oh.
I seconded. And you
Wells
got your bio
Murphy.
break.
Yep.
Mrs. Wells, you get that motion? Murphy second? Bio break added on? All in favor? 7-0. Get on down there, girl.
I'm going. Calm down. Go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and that we return to open session in this room in 20 minutes. The board would like to invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, and Robert Hingula.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Wells, second by Ms. Murphy, was it?
Mhm.
To go into executive session, all in favor? Move along. All righty then. Where are we? 27?
Okay.
Hang
Action
on a
items.
second. Let me just see what the hell.
Not yet. I thought I'd do all these motions.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
So we're on 20 right now. All right. I'd like to move that the board approve the staffing report as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Wells, second by Ms. Murphy. All in favor of staff report? Looks like 7-0.
I move that the board approve the USD 453 classified employee salary. I'm sorry. I move that the board approve the USD 453 classified employee starting hourly rates for the 24-25 school year as presented and grant the classified raises not to exceed a total cost of $530,670.
I'll second.
Motion by
Defer to
Mrs. Wells,
Overby.
Mrs. Overby seconded. All in favor? 7-0. We'll roll.
I move the board to grant the administrator raises not to exceed a total cost of $106,730.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Ms. Price. All in favor? We're 7-0.
That's it.
That it? Now where are we?
Upcoming meeting dates.
Meeting days.
Yep.
Can anybody read those? Or you
There's a
want-
ton.
I don't think we need to read all of them. Everybody's got them.
It's busy. Pay attention to the calendar.
There's something every.
Pay attention to the calendar. It's a very good thing to have at home. We got unscheduled patron input, 2. Well, let's get them up here one at a time. Oh, here it is. Who is it?
Liz Anstein.
Mrs. Einstein first? Is that right?
Yep.
Who's this? I can't read that.
That's her address.
Who?
That's her address.
Oh,
Good evening. My name is Liz Anstein. I live in Overland Park and I teach at Leavenworth High School. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you, Dr. Adams, and to the board members for allowing me to have this opportunity to address you this evening. Before I get started, I just wanted to thank Danielle Wells tonight for really taking the time to say CTE is important. We started a request about 5 years ago with We Need Space, and how important the CTE program is. It's academic. It's during every single school day, and it covers many, many student opportunities, and it's not extracurricular. It's not after school. it can't be after school and it can be before school, but it's every day during the school day. We need space. We need priority. It's a great program, and it can set us aside from some of our close competition at other school districts. And I think we have the teachers, we have the strength in expertise from outside of teaching, and I think we should take advantage of it. And I appreciate we are taking 18 members from TSA and DECA, which are both co-curricular. It's required by the state for us to offer these programs to their international competitions coming up very quickly. So thank you for the continued support of those programs. I wanted just to bring up just really quick negotiations. I've never been a big fan of that. I come from the private sector. I believe that you should get paid for what you're worth. And I understand that we can't pay teachers what they're worth. But I will say that we can certainly be respectful of them. In January, we were told that there was going to be a $5,000 teacher salary base for retention and recruitment. And then as I sat in a few negotiation meetings, I found that really it's a bargaining tool now. And the bargaining tool is teachers, you only work 7.5 hours a day because you have a duty-free lunch. So we want you to work more minutes. We want you to move PD, staff meeting, PLC to after school. And there's a couple other things that are included in that. And I'm here to tell you, there's no duty-free lunch. I would love for you to come watch what I do. I don't eat lunch. I don't have time. My school-based enterprises are all open. I have students from both the Special Populations Organization, Special Populations Group, and from the General Education Group working in all 3 stores during lunch. They work all 3 lunch periods. There's no duty-free lunch. And I'm not the only teacher doing that. So I think we need to quit thinking this and that people are working 7.5 hours during the day. They're not. They're coming in before school. They're working the entire school day, and they're working after school. So I just want people to be more respectful of the time that teachers are giving.
15
And then
seconds.
I just really want to tell you real quick, NTHS is the National Technical Honor Society. It has nothing to do with business. It has to do with JROTC, auto tech, journalism, graphic design, teachers as learners, culinary, marketing, entrepreneurs, fashion apparel, interior design, video broadcasting, and more.
Thank you. Mr. Foley?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Nick Foley. My daughter is a student at Henry Elementary. While I believe that most issues should follow procedures put in place, some issues require immediate action that must bypass these procedures, especially when it comes to the health and safety of children. That's why I'm here this evening. My wife and I were at home watching the live stream of this meeting. Then the building report for Henry Leavenworth came across. And then one board member asked a question, kind of a follow-up about a pellet gun at that school. We were not notified as parents, and to me, that's unacceptable. I get kind of choked up about this because I take it very seriously. I don't know what the board policy is about that and why that wasn't reported to parents, but I urge the board to clarify that and communicate to your parents. Other than that, it could have been worse, right? It's a pellet gun, but what's the policy if it looks like a gun, it's a pellet gun, or a real gun? So all it takes is one kid mistaking a pellet gun or a toy gun or a real gun, and then we have a tragedy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody really have any board comments that are pressing?
Like,
Well, I mean, if we're going to go run 4.5, 5-hour meetings every week or every month, there's something that's wrong as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I don't know. I'll stay here at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I just think we got to be cognizant of the staff that's here and all that. So if you want to do comments, we'll start them off. Go ahead.
what I meant. I don't have a speech. I just want to.
Can you start at the other end?
Ms. Murphy?
Sure, mine's gonna be quick. I went to the National School Board meeting. I have lots of things I want to talk about. I will let that wait till the next meeting. And hopefully there'll be a little bit more time to talk about the exciting things I found out. Important thing, pay attention to the calendar. This is my annual obligation of the teachers that contact me every year. This year, it's a month early. From this one group of teachers, my message that was given to me, the last 2 years have sucked. Of course, they said that during the COVID years too. Last 2 years has sucked. Can we please end school at that last half day and finish off then instead of extending through the rest of the week if you have the extra time, and giving you a whole month for them to change the lesson plans and their finals? I know the answer is probably no, but I ask this every year for them. Thank you.
Ms. Price?
Sure. I just want to remind everybody that spring sports, go out and help them finish strong. The district art show is definitely worth your time. We have some wonderful artists, and I know that Dr. Adams mentioned it, but I want to make sure everybody does go. It's worth seeing. And the spring play is this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Go. It'll be fun. And of course, my countdown is 32 days to graduation. Go Pioneers.
I'm ready now.
Are you ready, Mrs. Reed? Okay.
I had committed that I would bring this up, so I wanted to do that. So a communication was given. This is the second time that I know of for sure, at least, that the same individuals reached out about the food service. And they believed the food service quality wasn't improved and the food is rotten or undercooked or overcooked. And I reached out to some staff in the Warren building because I did a tour with Dr. Adams at the kitchen over there, and I got very negative feedback about the quality of the food, saying it was unedible. So they have students that meet in their classroom for lunch. And so just shining a light on that. Thank you.
Mrs. Wilson?
Thank you for everybody that came out, and have a good night.
It's over me.
I got to go to my first JROTC ball, which was wonderful, which was a delightful experience. I did have kids in ROTC, but they never invited me. So I enjoyed that. I just wanted to give a shout out to Andy Gillen at Warren. His 8th grade civics class did a project recently and invited us to come take a look. It's right near my house, easy to do. So I stopped in and to see their presentation. And this class did a presentation on planning for a flood and disaster or mitigation and what would happen to the city of Leavenworth, and took part. They played the parts of city government and county government, and I just thought that was a great way to learn about that. And they did an excellent job. I'm sure they got a lot out of it, and it was very prescient, and relevant to the community. So I just wanted to give a shout out about that. I enjoyed that.
Okay. While our district has its opportunities for improvement, of course, we're still producing exceptional students at every one of our buildings. We have district champions, state finishers, and soon to be international winners all over the place. I'm proud of every one of our pioneers, our staff included. I know we have struggles, but we have great successes, and everyone matters. That's it.
You did?
Are you going to talk about this?
I wasn't going to talk about it until I had more time, so I'll
Okay.
save this maybe for the next meeting.
Could have them put it on the district website or on the Facebook page.
Well, right, I'll discuss it. And I'd just like to say that I don't see a whole lot of support for our ball teams. I mean, I've gone to about every baseball game, and I think it's important that we support these things. The baseball team's doing relatively good compared to previous years, I think. Got a lot of young kids, has a future ahead of them, so I'm hoping that'll manifest it in itself. I will leave it at that. Drive safe. Oh, wait a minute. And make sure you sign the
The resolution.
resolution.